And what the hell is going on here, actually? The Jinchuriki said indignantly, looking at his reflection. What's the matter? You ask. It turned out to be as simple as it could be. Our unpredictable Konoha ninja number 1, looking in the reflection of the mirror, saw a fair-haired boy of about 12 years old. So what's the problem? It would seem that there's nothing unusual. No way. After all, a boy 7 years older should have been looking at him from the reflection. Looking at himself in the mirror, Naruto tried to remember where he had managed to screw up so badly. Gradually, the guy realized. He, the hero of the Fourth World War, the captain of Anbu, the Jinchuriki of the most powerful Biju, died with his team during the elimination of a Class S criminal. Because of the betrayal of one of his subordinates, everything went wrong. And here he is, together with Sakura, Sasuke and a fluffy fox cub to boot, somewhere between two spaces, peacefully talking with Hagoromo Otsutsuki. That old man again, you might think. Naruto thought the same. You see, he didn't agree with the outcome of their end. So, with the permission of one of the gods, he sent them to the past. And he didn't even ask if they wanted it or not. Oh well, Naruto was used to looking for the good in everything, which, of course, often made him regret it. But let's leave that aside. The main thing is that now there is a chance to fix everything. Plus, his friends are with him. The only thing that was upsetting was that all his powers and abilities would have to be restored anew. It's good that Kurama was also sent to the past. There was a seal on his stomach, which gave reason to think that the poor little fox would sit in a cage again. Naruto Pav. So, what do we have? I'm 13 years old, Sakura, Sasuke, and Kurama and I were sent into the past. My strength is the same as it should be at this age, but due to my knowledge and experience, there's a chance I'll get stronger with more training. Judging by the date marked on the calendar, today is the day of the sorting. It's 8 in the morning, so I still have 2 hours. So now I do a little cleaning, then cooking, breakfast, shower and I can get ready for the academy. Having collected and thrown out all the unnecessary garbage from the house, I swept and did a wet cleaning. Having studied the contents of the refrigerator and thrown out the sour milk, I concluded that I would have ramen and water for breakfast, since there was nothing else in the refrigerator. And that means that I will definitely need to go to the market for groceries. No, I certainly loved ramen, but 2 years of living together with Hinata forced me to consume this product in minimal quantities. After a quick breakfast and washing up, I headed for the shower. The warm water was refreshing. When I got out, I opened the closet. I needed to decide what to wear. Orange. I definitely like orange, but it would be nice to wear something else. Deciding to leave the orange pants and put on a black t-shirt, finally tying a protector around my neck, I left the house ready and happy. On my way to the academy, I met Sasuke. Deciding not to attract too much attention, I slowly approached him. "Tem, you will be much more attractive in the future," I said, coming closer to him. I'm always attractive, Dobby," he chuckled in response. "You haven't forgotten who you gave your first kiss to, have you?" And I immediately realized that I would definitely not repeat this mistake today. On the way to the academy, we discussed what had happened and came to the conclusion that everything was not so bad. When we entered the classroom, there was a deathly silence. Apparently, everyone was a little surprised to hear our casual dialogue with Sasuke. Well, yeah, try not to be surprised. "Naruto, is that you?" Kiba asked, slightly wary. "Well, yes, who else?" I answered, shrugging my shoulders. "You're somehow different, and you've even changed your appearance," Shikamaru said, yawning. I decided to change a little. I chuckled and sat down in the place next to Sasuke. "I'm more surprised that you and Sasuke are talking so calmly," Kiba narrowed his eyes. I just waved it off. Sakura and Ino burst into the office. Apparently Haruno decided to remember her childhood. Seeing us, she chuckled knowingly and sat down next to me, putting her hand on my shoulder and smiling. "Kai." The silence in the classroom was broken only by someone's barely perceptible voice. Iruka relieved the tension. So, he began to speak as he entered the office. "Today is the distribution into teams and your last day within the walls of this school." After these words, there was a long farewell speech, at the end of which Yumino even shed a few tears. "Okay, let's start the distribution. Team number," he pauses for a moment, and then continues again. "Team number 7. Sakura Haruno, Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Sensei, Kakashi Hatake. Team number 8. Kiba Inuzuka, Hinata Hyuga, Aburame Shino." Hearing the name of my future wife, I turned slightly and winked at her. The result in the form of a flushed Hyuga lifted my spirits. After the distribution was over and all the other teams had left with their senseis, we began to discuss what had happened. So, what are the plans? Sakura asked. To beat up some people, save our loved ones, and have a good time, I stated the obvious. I agree, Sasuke nodded, smiling. You know, I think we can start making global changes right now, I said, smiling. I completely agree, Sakura nodded. Having quickly run home fortunately, Sensei was not due to arrive anytime soon. We took a can of paint and vegetable oil. Sasuke secured the can of paint above the door, Sakura spilled the oil on the floor, and I opened the window. All that was left was to wait for Sensei. An hour and a half later, footsteps were heard outside the door. We acted as if nothing had happened. After the door opened, everything happened too quickly. Sensei, who entered, was doused from head to toe in pink paint, and then slipped on the spilled oil and flew out the window. Having laughed our fill, we went up to the roof. I don't like you at all, you bunch of idiots, was the first thing we heard. We're trying, Kakashi-sensei, I said with my usual smile. Kakashi glared at me with irritation. So, let's get acquainted first. Tell us about yourself, what you like, what you don't like. What you dream about, well, and all that stuff, Hatake began quickly. The three of them, in Kakashi's opinion, were downright strange. None of them matched the description in their personnel file. Perhaps you could set an example for us, Sasuke said, earning a raised eyebrow from Kakashi. Me. My name is Kakashi Hatake. I don't want to say what I like or don't like, I don't have a dream as such, I have a lot of hobbies, that's all. Your turn, he drawled monotonously. Let me begin, Haruno said, smiling. My name is Haruno Sakura, I like to pick flowers. I don't like when my loved ones get hurt. I want to become a combat medic nin like Tsunade Senju and help my teammates achieve their goals. A clanless kunoichi, has good chakra control, good academic knowledge, but nothing more. A complete zero in practice, and also hopelessly in love with Sasuke, isn't that what was said about her, the Junin thought. She didn't even mention Sasuke, and her dream is quite good. Allow me now, Sasuke continued. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I like tomatoes, silence, and training. There are many things I don't like, it would take too long to list them. My dream is to surpass my brother, revive the clan, and always protect those close to me. And again, it's not like I was told, Sasuke Uchiha is withdrawn, taciturn, arrogant. Obsessed with thoughts of revenge against his brother. Okay, now it's your turn, Kakashi said, turning to Naruto. Well, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like a lot of things and there are very few that I don't like. To be more precise, the only people I don't like are arrogant idiots. Sasuke is an exception. I also don't like people who are obsessed with revenge and hatred. Again, I say, this idiotem is an exception. My dream is to become Hokage, to protect the village and all the people close to me, I smiled. Impulsive, frivolous, suffers from an immense sympathy for Sakura. No, I will definitely visit the Hokage and ask him about everything in detail. The personal file on these three was compiled absolutely incorrectly. Kakashi looked around at everyone with a searching gaze. So, let's draw conclusions. Sasuke Uchiha is not an arrogant, revenge-obsessed sociopath who despises others. But a moderately reserved, slightly uncommunicative, but quite adequate guy with his own views. Sakura Haruno is not at all obsessed with her love for Uchiha, has her own goal in life, and treats her teammates adequately. At this rate, it will be possible to really make an Irionen out of her. Naruto Uzumaki is not stupid at all, as they said, a very open and cheerful guy. With a dream like his father and a character like his mother. He will become a good shinobi. Well done, Naruto, sensei would be proud, Hatake concluded after thinking. Okay, you are all very interesting guys. Tomorrow you have a test. At the third training ground at 10 in the morning, no late. No breakfast, or you will throw up, said the sensei and hurried away. You shouldn't be late either. Who knows, maybe, walking along the road of life, you'll get lost and never return home. The barely perceptible words thrown after him made him involuntarily shudder. Karma copy ninja. Naruto's POV. I woke up from the ringing of a hellish invention mistakenly called an alarm clock. The creator of this weapon of mass destruction was clearly my enemy. Half asleep, I throw this universal evil out the window. Well, now I'll have to buy a new one, I think, barely waking up. Okay, I need to get up, because breakfast won't make itself. Having stretched sweetly, I get out of bed. And here, world, give thanks and bow, the future Hokage has woken up. I made my bed, washed my face and brushed my teeth. Now it's time for breakfast. I take out 2 eggs and, without thinking, crack them into a hot frying pan. After a while, we put the contents on a plate, and here, my breakfast is ready. I devour the scrambled eggs at the speed of light. Now all I have to do is get dressed. Again, without bothering too much, I put on my favorite orange suit. I leave the house, and on the way I stop by the nearest weapons store. Having thrown on the henge of a guy about 20 years old, I go in and buy 2 dozen shurikens and kunai. I also buy explosive seals and leave the building. Arriving at the training ground, I see an interesting picture. Sakura is peacefully snoring on Sasuke's lap. Come on, get up, lovers. I shout, coming closer to them. Good morning to you too. Dressed up like an orange again, Uchiha squinted disapprovingly. Don't look at me like that with your Sharingan eyes, I snort. You're Adobe, Uzumaki, Sasuke answers quietly and displeased ly. Waking up from our little squabble, Sakura, stretching sweetly, says. Good morning, Naruto. Well, shall we give sensei a warm morning greeting? I say, smiling. How else? Sasuke grins. We were well prepared for the arrival of sensei. The seals laid out in the place where sensei would be were carefully camouflaged. We also set up a small trap in the shade of the trees. When sensei touched the barely noticeable fishing line, 100 kunai and shuriken would fly at him like hail. And here comes the sensei with a face like a brick hit me in early childhood. Without having time to say anything, Kakashi sensei steps from the safe zone into the explosive seal zone. Jumping from place to place, thereby causing another bang, the sensei, who does not understand anything, touches the fishing line. And here, the copy ninja, who has not yet come to his senses, leaves with the substitution technique. Angry and scary Kakashi appears before our eyes in a minute. And what about us? We are nothing. We stand there so white and fluffy, frankly trying not to laugh at the sight of the shabby sensei. You don't want to say anything in justification? The sensei asks expectantly. Didn't anyone tell you that it's impolite to be late? Sasuke asks instead of answering. Hitaki's only visible eye twitched nervously. You see, you have been overtaken by heavenly punishment, you better not be late anymore, Sakura said, blinking her eyelashes. Punishment has indeed caught up with me. In the form of 3 genin. And what about me? I'm okay. Quiet and calm, standing there, smiling. But somehow it seems to me that sensei doesn't believe in my innocence. Look at the way he looks at me. Okay, the sensei finally says. Let's begin the test. Your task is to take these bells from me. The sensei points to the belt, and then his eyebrow rises. Are you talking about these bells? I ask, holding them in my hands. How? When? What? Asks a surprised Kakashi, his throat already hoarse. I managed to take them off while you were dancing all over the training ground, I answer, simply shrugging my shoulders. The poor, confused sensei no longer understands anything. Kakashi sensei, whatever your test was, I think we did above the norm, Sakura says with a sly smile. Yes, Kakashi sighs. The test was about teamwork. There's no point in doing it again. Your teamwork is perfect. Then let's go have a bite to eat together, I suggest. Let's go, he replies. At exactly 10 in the morning we were near the residence. Kakashi sensei was only 10 minutes late, apparently he decided to be on time to be on the safe side. Having received the task, which consisted of weeding the garden, we headed to the assigned area as a friendly company. We completed the assigned task in the first half of the day. Kakashi sensei, let's practice. Sakura asks, approaching the sensei. I think it's still a bit early. The sensei tries to make excuses, but seeing our dissatisfied faces, he sighs heavily. You are monsters, not children. And here we are, already at the training ground with our lazy but beloved sensei. Okay, let's start with chakra control. You will walk on trees without hands. Watch carefully, he says and, stepping onto the trunk, walks as if on the ground. You need to direct the required amount of chakra, no more and no less than the norm. We nod. I create about 5 clones and we all try to climb the tree. Sakura, as expected, succeeds on her first try. Sakura really does have perfect chakra control. She should be enrolled in medic nin courses. Having a doctor on the team is a good thing. Naruto, I see you've already realized that the clone's experience and knowledge are transferred to the original. That's good, your training will go much faster. Thanks to the clones, Naruto also finished in a couple of hours. Even Sasuke managed without straining himself too much. I got a truly brilliant team. Okay, let's move on, Kakashi nodded. By the end of the day, we were walking calmly on vertical surfaces and water again, practicing taijutsu and sparring, and also finding out the elements. I have Fudan wind and Kaden fire, because of Kurama. Sakura has Doden earth and Suiden water. Sasuke, you should have guessed, Raiden lightning and Kaden. After the training, I said goodbye to the team and came home exhausted and happy. I fell onto my bed and tiredly closed my eyes. What are you lying around for, lazybones? Get your skinny ass into the subconscious. Kurama, I exclaimed joyfully. A second, and here I am already in the subconscious. Time travel did not affect the subconscious, so instead of the sewer, as it was before, there are green meadows, blue sky and just a gorgeous landscape, in the middle of which stood a huge cage with a red fox. I'm so glad to see you, I shouted joyfully, throwing myself at the furry giant. All this time I couldn't get in touch with you. And trying to get into the subconscious ended in a headache, I complained. It's a time travel flaw, and I needed to rest, Kyuubi replied. But I saw everything, and the way you dealt with Hatake, too. I smiled. Sakura and Sasuke are with me, Kurama is also nearby. There is time to prepare for the meeting with Zabuza and Haku. Life is definitely beautiful. A day in the life of team number 7. The sun rose over Konoha. Uzumaki stretched sweetly and opened his eyes. Today was a day off, and this day could be dedicated to his beloved self. After lying around for a while, Naruto got out of bed and thought for a long time about how he could spend his day off. And so, leaving the doors of his beloved apartment, he came up with an idea. I need to visit Uchiha, he thought with a grin. Arriving at his best friend's house, he unceremoniously climbed through the window. As expected, Uchiha was sleeping peacefully and not bothering anyone. It wouldn't last long. Uchiha, get up, Naruto shouted, but as expected, there was no reaction. Well, hold on, Sasuke, it's your own fault. Having filled a bucket of water, he unceremoniously gave his friend a kind of shower, in bed. Dazed, wet and dissatisfied, Uchiha jumped out of bed shouting, I'll kill you, two-legged parasite. Without thinking twice, Naruto decided that it was time to leave and jumped out of the same window, and the Uchiha, who was not at a loss, rushed after his friend. The villagers, who did not understand anything, watched the original game of tag between the two Konoha genin. Shouting, Uchiha, I beg you, don't hit me, and beg for mercy, Naruto. They managed to crash into the 10th team. Shikamaru, save us, they're killing us. The unpredictable ninja shouted, hiding behind Nara. The stunned genius stood silently, opening and closing his mouth, when he and Uzumaki were doused with water from a hose that appeared out of nowhere. Revenge is complete, the enemy was too weak, Uchiha, holding the hose, said, too seriously for this situation. Fucking Avenger, Naruto muttered, wringing out his shirt. Meanwhile, Ino and Choji watched the scene in surprise. Ino, is this genjutsu? Choji asked uncertainly. I think so, she replied, and then, making seals with her hands, she said, Kai, but the illusion refused to dissipate. No need to scare people, Sakura approached them and looked at Sasuke and Naruto with displeasure. He dared to wake me up, Uchiha said resentfully, and Ino let out a quiet yelp at this picture. There's no point in sleeping, Uzumaki muttered. Shika, are you okay? He asked Naru, who had more or less come to his senses. Yeah, he nodded. Well, what about you guys? Haruno asked, turning her attention to the rest of Team 10. Don't pay attention, Sasuke is always like this when he's woken up. How do you know? Ino said jealously and indignantly. Oh, she knows a lot of things, Uchiha chuckled. Kakashi Hatake lay on his bed, studying with interest another pornography, for some reason called literature. But the arousing descriptions of the scenes desperately did not want to be perceived, since his thoughts each time returned to his team. The unpredictable composition with interesting personalities made him think every time. At least take their first test with the bells. They managed to complete the task so quickly, without giving him a chance to say a word. After that, the copy ninja decided not to be late anymore. He and his team had been training for 6 months already, and he was quite surprised by their abilities. They grasped everything on the fly. Kakashi could say that their powers were more in line with Chunin than Genin. During their training, they had significantly improved their taijutsu and learned one of the elemental techniques. Haruno's chakra control had become even better. In general, Kakashi decided that he had a pretty smart team. Thinking about it, he decided that soon he would be able to take on a mission of a higher rank. Besides, his team knew what teamwork was. They supported and understood each other with half a glance. He couldn't even dream of such a team. Although, it was really strange because they didn't get along so well when they were in the academy. To tell the truth, he sometimes thought that they were older than they wanted to seem. The strangest of them was Naruto. Kakashi personally observed this restless child. Trying to attract attention, Naruto always did something. No, of course, Naruto is still cheerful and open, but something has changed in him, some kind of hardcore has appeared in him. Thinking about it, the Junin realized that there is still a lot he doesn't know about his team. Kakashi-sensei, open the door. Came from behind the front door. The copy ninja saw Sakura standing at the threshold. What happened? He asked the student, but then he suspected something was wrong. His body was not obeying him. The shadow takeover was successful. Oh, you, he muttered. Teams number 7 and 10 emerged from the bushes. All that's left is to tie him up, Naruto said. Maybe you should think it over again, said Kakashi, tied to his chair. No, Sasuke shook his head. We're too curious to see what's under your mask, Ino nodded. Iruka, who came in just in time, saved him. Kakashi-san, the door was open, I was supposed to give you. What, actually, is going on here? The students, frozen at that moment, looked at each other and said, let's get out, and after that they jumped out the window. Yumino blinked his eyes in confusion, but when Kakashi calmly freed himself from the rope holding him, he was completely stupefied. I wanted to play along with them a little, but apparently they were not destined to remove my mask. At this, Iruka chuckled smilingly. Mission Country Waves 1. Naruto's POV. Have I already said that I hate mornings? Well, never mind, I'll say it again, I hate mornings. Especially today's. Thank you very much, Kurama. Angry and sleep-deprived, rubbing the bruised spot, I got up from the floor. And I complained about the alarm clock. This piece of iron is just an angel compared to the furry monster in my subconscious. This little fox with all good nature agreed to wake me up. Because yet another god knows what alarm clock flew out the window. What are you mumbling about to yourself? Go wash yourself, idiot. A red shaggy carpet, I said, rolling my lip in an offended manner. Listen, Kurama, I've been thinking, I need to start improving my relationship with Hinata, I shared while brushing my teeth. What? Are your hormones raging and you need female attention? Kyuubi laughed. Damn, come on, Kurama, I'm serious, I sighed. Okay, would-be lover, we'll think of something. Blank, blank. Datbeo, Uchiha, you finally caught that damn cat. How could I forget about the mission to catch Tora's cat? Sometimes I think it's not a cat, but a messenger of the devil. We couldn't catch it for 2 hours. That's it, let's give it to its owner, otherwise she won't leave a single living spot on my face, Sasuke shouted indignantly. The captured cat did not want to accept defeat, leaving new scratches from her claws on the brunette's face. Seeing how the wife of some magnate literally tortured a poor cat in a strangling embrace, I understood all those attempts of hers to escape from this lady. I don't envy Tora, the Uchiha wheezed pitifully, observing the same picture. Me too, Sakura nodded quietly. Ma, Kakashi said in response. Okay, you guys are great, team number 7, Iruka smiled. Of course, Datbeo, I shouted. Calm down, Dobi, Sasuke told me. Okay, judging by your sensei's report, you really are great, Hiruzen nodded. Hokage-sama, I think they are ready for a more difficult mission, Hatake said. And I noticeably perked up. Well, if you say so, Sarutobi drawled expectantly. Okay, your next mission will be to guard and escort an important person to the land of waves. This is a C rank mission, so there shouldn't be any complications. Sasuke and Sakura sighed heavily. They knew about all the surprises that were coming. Tazuna-san, you may come in, the Hokage said. There was a noise behind the door, and a heavy smell of fumes hit my nose. No, I had to scare him, otherwise I would faint from that smell. The expression on my teammates' faces was just as dejected. Looking at them with a telling look, I prepared myself for a small scene. And then the door opened. What the hell? And these are my guards? They are children, especially this little one, the bridge builder said sarcastically. A second later, I am standing behind the old man, and a kunai is pointed at his throat, In front of him are Sakura and Sasuke with kunai in their hands, ready for battle. You shouldn't jump to conclusions, Tazuna-san. My team isn't just kids, they're shinobi. You shouldn't anger them. Guys, put your kunai down, says sensei. We obediently put our weapons in our pockets. Okay, in an hour at the main gate, also adds the Junin. You shouldn't drink Tazuna-san, the enemy shinobi might smell your fumes, I tell the old man as we leave. Blank, underscore, blank. From the third person. Kakashi, I have something to talk about, the old man says when everyone leaves. Yes, Hokage-sama, the Junin nods to him. The children have been acting rather strangely lately. Before this, I didn't pay much attention to your comments and the changes in their character. But now, everything is obvious. I don't want to jump to conclusions. And the changes are only for the better, but you should be careful. Even such changes must have a reason. Although they could have simply come to their senses, Sarutobi told him quietly. For the past 6 months, Kakashi had been giving him a daily report in addition to the mission report. He informed him about the results of training, changes in character, and everything else that concerned their team. These kids, they never got along with each other. And then, understanding each other at a glance, they did this to the poor old man. The Hokage was also aware of the situation in the land of waves and the possible difficulties. But he believed that this could only temper the future experienced ninja. In the end, all this would be under Kakashi's supervision. And he trusted him. I understand, Hokage-sama. Can I go? The man asks. Yes, Kakashi, you can go, Sarutobi nods. Blank, underscore, blank. When I got home, I started getting ready. I took kunai and shurikens, explosive seals. I also took a first aid kit and lunch for the upcoming journey. In order not to strain myself with the load, I simply sealed everything in a FUNN seal, which I drew on my wrist. Particularly complex fuinjutsu techniques were not yet within my power. But I could create a small barrier and draw explosive seals. I could also seal some things for easier transfer. And so, having taken a shower and put on a new combat suit, which I bought recently, I was ready to set out. Finally, having looked at my reflection in the mirror with satisfaction, I smiled. A black suit with a dark blue collar. Leather belts around the waist with the same dark blue pockets throughout the suit. Black pants and a dark blue pocket for kunai fixed on the knee and a little higher for shuriken. On the right side, the knee is wrapped in a white bandage. Ruffling my already unruly hair, I jumped out the window, heading towards the main gate of the village. When I got there, I saw the team assembled, Kakashi, and a noticeably sober bridge builder. I grinned contentedly. You look great, Naruto, Sakura chuckled. Yes, little Hyuga would appreciate it, Kurama said contentedly. Oh, it's a pity she's not here, I mentally answered my friend. Uchiha only said, assessing my appearance. Look like a human, he said after. I proudly raised my nose. Okay, let's go, said the silent sensei. After waving goodbye to Izuma and Katetsu, we set off on our long journey. I walked ahead of the team, excited for what was to come. Sasuke and Sakura were on either side of Tazuna. For efficiency I created 2 clones and placed them behind the bridge builder. This way, old Tazuna was surrounded by guards. The journey was long, and because Tazuna-san couldn't move fast, our journey was even longer. By late evening, we made camp at the edge of the forest. Sasuke unsealed the sleeping bags and dinner. After dinner, everyone went to bed. Wheelguard in turn. First me, then Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura, sensei informed us. An hour later, Tazuna's snores and Sakura and Sasuke's sniffles were heard. Uchiha, who had been lying a meter away from Haruno at first, somehow ended up next to her and happily threw his limbs over the poor girl, hugging her to his chest. I smiled contentedly. I didn't feel like sleeping at all. Freeing myself from the sleeping bag, I jumped onto the branch to sensei. Why can't you sleep, Naruto? Hitaki asked distantly. I shrugged silently. A light breeze blew, the bright dark blue sky was strewn with stars, and the huge gray moon looked very majestic. Past, future or present, the sky is unchangeable. Kakashi-sensei, what are you thinking about when you look at the sky? I broke the silence. The Junin looked at me in surprise. Nothing, he replied. And I think about my parents, I exhaled. Kakashi tensed. Sometimes I want to know about them, to know at least something, I said in a strangled voice. And I wasn't lying. Even during the war one didn't have time to get to know my father well. I felt his love, but I would have liked to know him even better. You know, Naruto, Sensei began a little quietly, but then stopped. I'll tell you later everything I know about them, he croaked. I nodded, smiling. Kakashi-sensei, I always feel like you're holding too much in, I said suddenly, tilting my head slightly. I wanted to shake him up a bit. And to stop him feeling guilty about losing his loved ones. Kakashi chuckled nervously. I've had to endure a lot, he simply answered. And lose many, the sensei added a little more quietly. Even so, you have to look forward. Would your loved ones be happy with you torturing yourself like this? You have to look forward for those who died and for those who are still alive, I said with a smile. You know, sensei, in the shinobi world, those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their loved ones are even worse, I said, jumping off the branch. Sensei sighed nervously and looked at me in shock. Where from? He asked quietly. I'll tell you when you tell me more about your parents, I winked at sensei. Go to bed, Kakashi-sensei, the son of the White Fang shouldn't look so bad. Kakashi sighed again quietly and, jumping off the branch, lay down somewhere behind Tazuna. The chirping of crickets could be heard. Now I would have a lot to tell him. The coming night promised to be long. Mission Country of Waves completion. The next morning we continued our journey. Kakashi-sensei kept looking at me suspiciously. What happened? Sasuke asked, coming closer. He just made it clear that he's not that simple, I shrugged. Sasuke chuckled knowingly. Blank, underscore, blank, Pav Kakashi Hatake. Last night I couldn't sleep. How did he know that phrase? Frantically turning it over in my head, I understood. I've never told them that before. Plus, he knows I'm the son of the White Fang. Who is he? No, it would be more correct to say who are they. The unknown was stressful, but I had to wait. Naruto was right after all. I had to stop living in the past. I was pulled out of my thoughts by two puddles in the middle of the road. Seriously, in this weather? Too primitive an attempt to hide. I glanced at the team slightly. It was clear that they understood everything. Minato and Naruto with Sasuke throw kunai into the puddles, from which two shinobi jump out. Judging by everything, Chunin. Sakura delivers a powerful punch to the stomach, knocking out one of the opponents. Meanwhile, Sasuke sends a fireball enhanced by the wind element to Naruto. And so, as a result, we have two dead shinobi. To be honest, this is too perfect a job for newbies. If Naruto and Sasuke can endure, then Sakura, it must have been hard to see the murder. But no matter, the three of them are doing well. Okay, I'll figure it out later. They must have come for Tazuna-san. Is there anything you want to tell us? I asked the bridge builder, releasing my chi. The poor old man turned pale with fear. Come on, Kakashi-sensei, says Sakura. They just didn't have the money to pay for a mission of a higher rank, Sasuke nods. Regardless of your decision, we will move on, Naruto interrupts me. I sigh heavily. Did I mention they are unbearable? Naruto's pav. Time passed. Over the past couple of days we finally reached a familiar clearing. A familiar rabbit began to move in the bushes. Get down, Sakura shouted and knocked Tazuna down. A sword flew over us and crashed into the nearest tree. A man, covered in bandages, stood on the hilt. Momochi Zabuza, huh, I say with a smirk. Informed kid, the man chuckled. I wonder if Kakashi Hatake is a copy ninja. Now it's clear why those two Chunin aren't alive, he chuckles. Don't get into a fight, he's too strong for you, says the Junin and opens his right eye. And here is the Sharingan, says Momochi. A fog is spreading around, blocking all visibility. Naruto, Kakashi shouts at me. It will all be over now. I answer clearly and disperse the fog with a powerful gust of wind. Little bastard, the missing nin shouts. The clone he created rushes towards us. I don't have time to react right away and am saved from the decapitator's blow by a fireball launched by Uchiha. Sakura dispels the clone with a powerful punch from above. What are you messing around about? Stop this circus already. You're not going to kill them anyway, Kurama said indignantly. It's hard for me to even defend myself now, I snort. While we were dealing with the clone, Kakashi-sensei was imprisoned in a water prison. But Sasuke and I launched two fireballs at Zabuza, which he had to dodge. And the water prison was dispelled. From the third person. You damn brats are getting in the way. Zabuza growled. Momochi, I advise you not to get distracted. Kakashi shouts. The beautiful fight ends with Kakashi performing the water whirlpool technique before Zabuza. The Nukenin is thrown several meters into a tree. Kakashi threw a kunai, pinning Momochi, and then, deciding to deliver the final blow, someone beats him to it. Senbons were thrown at the Junin, and he fell dead on the grass. Anbu of the mist, Kakashi groaned and fainted from chakra exhaustion. Sakura ran up to Kakashi, placing her hands on his exhausted body. They glowed with the familiar green chakra. Having picked up the bridge builder, who was shaking like an aspen leaf, and Kakashi-sensei, who had more or less come to his senses, we headed to Tazuna's house. What happened to your friends? Kurama asked his Jinchuriki. I created a clone and sent him to Haku and Zabuza. After negotiations, I will find out what is going on. Do you think they will agree to negotiate? Asked Kyubi. Gato is a real bastard. If we explain everything to them carefully, they themselves will rid us of him and his minions, the boy answered his friend. When we reached Tazuna-san's house, we were tired and wandered off to different rooms. At that moment the clone dissipated and good news came to me. Sasuke, Sakura, I have something to talk about, Naruto said, closing the door. So, Uchiha says expectantly. Haku and Zabuza have believed, now they will not hunt us. And they will get rid of Gato and their minions. In exchange, the bridge will be built, but Gato's stolen money will go to them, he told them the news. A fair exchange, Haruno nods. That means until the construction is finished, we can devote time to training, Uchiha says contentedly. Yeah, Uzumaki nods. That's good, and now I'm going to my room, Haruno says, heading towards the door. Maybe Naruto will sleep separately, and you with me. Sasuke smirks. You'll make do with Uchiha, Sakura replies and winks as she leaves the room. This one has hormones too, Kurama laughs. You should keep quiet, Uzumaki snorts indignantly. Naruto's POV. The following week passed without incident. The joyful news of the mysterious death of Gato and his subordinates spread throughout the Wave Country. Kakashi-sensei decided that one of his subordinates killed him because he refused to pay money. In principle, he was almost right. Time passed, the construction was coming to an end, and we trained. Our capabilities increased, and by the time it was time to return, we were already well prepared for the Chunin exam. We already had several elemental techniques in our arsenal. Taijutsu was at the highest level and I could freely release one tail. I decided not to study Rasengan, deciding to leave it until I met the perverted hermit. Sasuke already had a Sharingan with 2 Tomo. And Sakura became an excellent combat melee nin. Overall, by the end of the mission we went home in a very good mood. Shinobi of Sand. The long-awaited meeting. Having reached Konoha, the genin went home. And Kakashi-sensei, sighing heavily, went to the residence to report on the mission. Later, their completed mission was counted as a B-rank mission. And having given the appropriate payment, they were sent to rest for the next week. Time passed, and they trained. They carried out D-rank missions. Time passed too quickly. They didn't even notice when that moment came. After another mission, that very day came. The day when they first met Gaara. Kakashi-sensei said goodbye and disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Oh, really? The Chunin exam is coming soon, Sakura sighed. Finally, Sasuke nodded in agreement. We need to get some good rest these days, Naruto said. Uzumaki took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. He would see Gaara soon. Thoughts of his friend were warm in his heart. They always had some kind of spiritual connection with him. Naruto really wanted to do everything differently this time. The black mark, the death of the third, the fight with Gaara, Sasuke's departure. All this made him strong, but he really wanted everything to be different this time. Kurama pulled him out of his thoughts. Come down to me, I have a talk, the nine-tailed one told him. Without thinking twice, Naruto closed his eyes and found himself in subconsciousness. The fox's face was serious. Naruto tensed up. I sense Shukaku, and he is extremely unstable, Kurama informed him. So they'll be here soon, Naruto sighed tiredly. He was prepared for this, after all. Yes, be careful, Kyubi said. When was I not careful? Uzumaki asked him. Should I list all the cases for you? He asked his Jinchuriki with a grin. I'm quiet, Naruto said, giving in. Kurama said he sensed Shukaku. So Gaara and his brother and sister are already here, he said to Sasuke and Sakura. Already here? Sakura asked with interest. There won't be any conflicts, Sasuke sighed heavily. Their conversation was interrupted by noise. Something moved behind them and they turned to the sound. On the road, under the unsuccessful camouflage of a rectangular stone, Konohamaru and his friends were hiding. Konohamaru, this disguise is completely useless. Uzumaki shook his head. Brother Naruto. The boy shouted and threw the box down. Oh, who is this? He asked, looking at my teammates. Ah, these are my friends, we are on the same team, the Jinchuriki answered, Sasuke and Sakura. Hello, Konohamaru, Sakura smiled warmly. Hello, he nodded. Brother Naruto, let's go play. The Hokage's grandson shouted excitedly. Sorry, Konohamaru, let's do it next time. There's a very important day coming up soon. But when I have time, I'll definitely teach you some cool technique, Naruto said. Okay then, the boy answered him. Okay guys, let's go play somewhere else, he said to his friends and ran forward. But, catching on a scarf, he flew forward. Oh god, why couldn't this have been avoided, flashed through Naruto's mind. More than anything in the world, he didn't want conflicts. But had he ever managed to avoid them? Naruto had learned in his life that in order to get closer to someone, you need to hit them hard. And only after another fight, all his words and convictions worked well on his opponents. It was probably the adrenaline that made people open up when they felt it during a fight. And a heart-to-heart talk worked perfectly after that. Naruto didn't know all this before. He just wanted to knock all the nonsense out of the stubborn heads of his opponents. Pain, loneliness, fear, love, all this gave rise to hatred that served as all the troubles of this world. Watch where you're going, idiot. The guy in black clothes grabbed Konohamaru by the scruff of the neck and lifted him up. Let me go, the boy began to struggle desperately. Kankuro, thought Team 7. Kankuro, let him go, the girl standing next to him looked disapprovingly at her younger brother. I advise you to let him go, Uzumaki said. And what will happen if I don't listen? Kankuro answered him with a grin. Konohamaru kicked his legs. Do you even know who I am? The boy screamed in despair. Shut up, brat. The puppeteer shut him up. Sakura came up to him and squeezed his hand tightly and said, I advise you to let him go. The stunned sister looked at the girl in surprise. Kankuro unclenched his fist from the pain in his hand and the boy fell to the ground. Run away from here, she told him. He nodded in agreement and rushed away with his friends. Oh, you, the angry puppeteer shouted, grabbing her by the wrist. Naruto sighed, how he didn't want this conflict. He took out a kunai and threw it in his direction. The sharp blade flew centimeters from the guy's face, catching the black piece of cloth that was thrown over Kankuro's head. Sasuke, who appeared behind him, caught the kunai and, coming a little closer, said, I don't advise you to behave like that. And especially not to hold my girlfriend's hand. They were distracted from further action by a voice from above. Kankuro, that's enough, the boy on the roof told him. His hair was red, and there were marks under his eyes, as if drawn with a black marker, from obvious lack of sleep. The boy was younger and weaker in appearance. But these words were enough for Kankuro to unclench his hand and look at the boy with fear. Gaara, but. I said enough. Gaara's eyes were black, emptiness reflected in them. Naruto looked at Gaara, only he knew what was really hidden in that void. He felt the same way. He considered Gaara one of his best friends. And now, seeing in those eyes not emptiness, but pain and disappointment from the world. Naruto wanted to save his friend from the abyss of loneliness again. I apologize for my brother, he said, looking at the 7th team. Everything is fine, we are not offended, Naruto answered, looking straight into those lonely eyes. Kankuro and Temari watched the two Jinchuriki in silence for a moment, looking into each other's eyes and not saying a word. Temari broke the silence. We need to go, Gaara. He looked at his sister and nodded. As he was leaving, Gaara turned around and looked at the three genin. What is your name? He asked. Sakura, Sasuke, Naruto, they answered in turn. And you are Sabaku no Gaara, right? Naruto said. The dog looked at Naruto in surprise. How do you know? He asked slowly. It's a shame not to know the Kasuke's son, Naruto replied. Gaara looked at Naruto and his teammates with suspicion. I hope to see you again, he said. Especially you, he said, looking at Naruto. I can say the same thing, Uzumaki chuckled. Blank, underscore, blank. The Chunin exam, then, Naruto looked with interest at the receipt with permission to participate in the exam. Yes, I proposed your candidacy, Kakashi told them. The Chunin exam is voluntary, so if you suddenly. Kakashi-sensei, are you serious? Sakura raised an eyebrow. First of all, we know that only a team of 3 people can pass the exam, Naruto began. Secondly, you know very well that our strength is already equal to a good Chunin, Sasuke continued. Kakashi sighed, well his team aren't idiots. Regardless, there will be many strong shinobi at the exam. And you should be prepared, he said. Of course, Kakashi-sensei, Sakura nodded. We won't let you down, Naruto smiled. Kakashi watched the team with interest. They're not ready yet, Iruka said indignantly. They are not the same students they were at the academy, Iruka. And I can say with confidence that they will pass the exam. Kakashi replied. Even though he said so, he genuinely cared about them. Blank. In the evening after the long-awaited news, many shinobi who had passed through, sitting on the monument with the faces of the Hokage, looked at the bright dark blue sky strewn with stars. The night wind was just right for such a hot day. Sasuke looked at the starry sky and remembered his brother. He wanted to see him and knock all the nonsense out of his head. He had never felt such affection for the village, so his act was still the biggest stupidity, in the Uchiha's opinion. But he still understood that despite everything, he loved and respected his brother very much. Even when his only goal was revenge, the connection with his brother was unbreakable. The same connection connected him with Naruto. This restless, unpredictable ninja was something very dear to him. After wandering around the world for a long time and returning to Konoha, he married Sakura and slowly began to understand how dear she was to him. Now, in his life there were 3 most precious people on earth. And he knew that no matter what, he would protect them with all his heart. Naruto sighed barely audibly. His whole life was a continuous struggle, against hatred and loneliness. Pain's words spoken so long ago involuntarily appeared in his head. How do you intend to get rid of all this hatred? Now, he knew that he was not alone and was confident that he could rid the entire shinobi world of this very hatred. Sakura, quietly watching her teammates, fondly remembered how she always wanted to reach their level. How she wanted to stand next to them, holding each other side by side. Now she knew that she was always there, watching and looking after them. Why are you sitting there and keeping quiet? Kurama broke the silence. Quiet, don't ruin the moment, Naruto was indignant. What a sensitive Jinchuriki I got, snorted Kyuubi. I think it's time to go, I need to rest for the remaining couple of days, Sakura said. Yes, let's go, Naruto nodded. With cheerful laughter, the 3 genin ran down the Hokage rock. With a sense of anticipation for the upcoming events. Chunin Senbatsu Shiken, first stage. Pa of Sakura. Sakura woke up early in the morning. As she started getting ready, Haruno thought about the upcoming exam. Despite everything she had gone through, she felt some excitement. Still, the upcoming events made her tense. Haruno always considered herself the team's ballast. The desperate zeal to stand next to them never went away. But the stronger Sakura became, the more she realized that she was still far away. Now Haruno understood. Being physically strong is not enough. You need to be mentally strong. This time, she was sure that no matter what, she would protect her loved ones. Even if she had to die. With such determined thoughts, Sakura left the house. Sasuke's POV. Walking along the road to the academy, Uchiha was looking forward to the events that lay ahead of them. Sasuke was determined to pass this damn exam. More than anything in the world, he wanted to beat the crap out of some snake. And to do that, he needed to pass the first stage. Having reached the academy, Sasuke saw Sakura. His soul warmed. He really fell in love with this strange, and once very noisy girl. After the war, he began to slowly get closer to this pink-haired kunoichi. Sakura, Uchiha called out to her. Oh, Sasuke-kun, Haruno waved her hand at him. Has Naruto arrived yet? Uchiha asked her. No, as usual, he's late, Haruno answered. I see, he said, looking at the girl carefully. They couldn't be alone together lately. Sasuke took Sakura's hand and smiled warmly. Haruno looked embarrassed in response. The first stage of the Chunin exam. An important event that takes place twice a year. Representatives from neighboring countries come together for this exam. Naruto recalled the exam he had taken many times. The one he had never been able to pass. Many things had happened during this exam. Orochimaru's arrival, the meeting with Gaara and the perverted hermit, the death of the third, and Sasuke's departure. It was after this exam that the Jinchuriki's entire life took a completely different turn. After they returned to the past, despite his carefree behavior, the thought of not being able to save the third, or Sasuke leaving again, echoed in his heart like a dull pain. Naruto slapped himself and shook his head. Somehow these thoughts are not good at all. He is Naruto Uzumaki. He never gives up. Nothing can stop him. And Kurama is with me, he told himself for the umpteenth time. Hey, idiot, stop messing around. You're going to be late for the first stage, the very angry, nine-tailed fox shouted, confirming his thoughts. Naruto jumped up, completely forgetting what a door was. He dressed hastily and flew out the window. You idiot, Naruto, you'll even be late for your own death. Sakura was indignant. Uzuratonkachi. Uchiha only told him. Naruto stuck out his tongue. Having climbed up to the second floor of the academy, they saw the expected picture. Izuma hit Lee, and he flew back, falling on his butt. What kind of kindergarten? Naruto asked mentally. Uzumaki's gaze fell on Neji. Cats scratched at his soul. During the war, Hyuga saved him at the cost of his life. Since then, Hinata always remembered her brother. I will definitely save everyone. Naruto promised himself once again. Izuma-san, Kotetsu-san, dispel this genjutsu already, Sakura snorted disapprovingly. We don't have time for this, Uchiha nodded. After all, this is the second floor, Naruto said in agreement. You're doing great, Azumo chuckled. But that's not enough, Kotetsu said, preparing to kick. Sasuke also swung his leg, preparing to parry the blow, but they were stopped by Rock Lee, who was there in a matter of seconds. Who told us not to attract attention? Tenten asked him disapprovingly. Rock Lee's face turned red with embarrassment and he looked at Haruno defiantly. Sasuke, seeing this, narrowed his eyes in disapproval. Sakura, let's date. I'll protect you, even at the cost of my life. Lee shouted enthusiastically. Sakura was a little embarrassed, but then, chuckling, said, I can stand up for myself. Rock Lee wilted. But I'm very glad that you like me, let's be friends. Haruno smiled and extended her hand. Lee beamed and shook the girl's hand fiercely. Okay, we'll go, Uchiha said discontentedly. And, taking Sakura's hand from Lee, he dragged her to the third floor. What's your name? Neji called out. It's not my name that should interest you, Sasuke chuckled. Neji looked at him with incomprehension. And Naruto chuckled and went up to the third floor. However, you'll soon understand who I'm talking about, he answered his silent question and dragged Sakura after Uzumaki. Blank, underscore, blank. So, you came after all? Kakashi asked. He appeared near the entrance to the auditorium. Did you expect us to chicken out, sensei? Sakura chuckled. What are you saying? Not at all, Kakashi waved his hands. Then he smiled, the mask on his face trembled, and his eye narrowed slightly. I'm proud of you. You'll be even more proud of us when we pass the exam, Naruto chuckled. And Kakashi-sensei walked away from the door, saying at last. I believe in you. Well, what, are you ready? Sasuke asked, slightly opening the door. Of course, Sakura and I said. The door opened and they felt the tension in the air. That oppressive atmosphere again. In the far corner of the classroom, Uzumaki saw Kabuto. Gritting his teeth, Uzumaki tensed. Oh, hi, said Nara, approaching. Have you come to this stupid exam too? The Jinchuriki grinned. Shikamaru Nara himself. Hello everyone, Choji said, crunching on another bag of chips. Sasuke, Sakura, Ino nodded, greeting. Everyone standing looked at the girls in surprise. Why are you looking like that? Sakura asked. Haruno and I just talked in private. And I admitted that she really loves Uchiha. Sakura, you've mastered this problematic woman. You're incredible, Shika expressed his surprise. It's just that she's even more problematic, Sasuke said. But, seeing Sakura's angry look, he stopped short. But that's why I like you, he said defensively. Ho ho, I never thought that Uchiha would be afraid of a girl, Kiba chuckled. I was always afraid of them, and Sakura even more so, he chuckled. Sakura only snorted approvingly in response. And Naruto was no longer paying attention to anything. Hyuga appeared before his eyes. Hinata-chan, Uzumaki smiled. And Hinata blushed. It's good to see you, Hinata-chan, Naruto said. I'm glad to see you too, Hinata replied, blushing and stammering. Naruto's heart began to beat wildly. How could I not notice her? He asked himself for the umpteenth time. Uchiha poked his teammate in the side. But Naruto didn't pay attention at all, his thoughts were already far away. Looking at Hinata, he remembered with trepidation how he kissed her. Then his thoughts became more and more perverted until they reached their wedding night. And Naruto acquired the same color of his face as the embarrassed Hinata. What's wrong with him? Kiba asked. Sakura and Sasuke just waved him off. Pervert. The time spent with Jiraiya and Kakashi was not in vain, Kyuubi laughed. Go away, Naruto said, frowning. Stop staring, otherwise your perverted thoughts will be revealed by your growing friend in pants. Kurama continued to mock. And Naruto, who had come to his senses, blushed deeply. Mentally sending the rusty Kyuubi, Naruto knocked all the perverted nonsense out of his head. Looking around at the assembled newcomers, Uzumaki smiled. They would still become close friends for him. Naruto was pulled out of his thoughts by someone's familiar voice. First years, you should be quieter, said Kabuto, approaching them. This isn't a children's matinee. Behave decently. Who the hell are you? Ino asked displeased Ly. Yakushi Kabuto. This is my 4th year taking this exam, he said. You've been taking this for the 7th time and haven't failed yet? Shikamaru asked. Hey, well, yes, he replied. But you'd better look back. Look back? Ino asked. Yamanaka felt a shudder as she looked. These are shinobi from the village hidden in the rain. Their patience is short. Everyone is already on edge, so stay calm, Kabuto said. This two-faced idiot, Naruto thought. Okay, you're newbies, you don't know anything yet, Yakushi chuckled. Did you learn a lot about this exam? Kiba asked. Yes, everything is on these cards. If you want, I can share the information. What kind of cards are these? Ino asked. Yakushi Kabuto is here, the sound trio too. That means Orochimaru is somewhere nearby, Uchiha thought in the meantime. The information is recorded by chakra. In order to find out the information, you need to direct chakra to the card, and it will give out the information, Naruto interrupted him. So you're aware of it, huh? Kabuto asked warily. Kabuto-san, I don't think you should spread information about those gathered here, Sakura said. We are quite capable of handling this without your help, Sasuke nodded. Kabuto frowned with displeasure. I see you newbies are too confident in yourselves. Never mind, it won't last long, he said and went into the back of the auditorium. Naruto cursed in his mind. Damn henchman of Orochimaru. How he wanted to get rid of him quickly. But Naruto understood that he didn't have enough strength yet. And Orochimaru was somewhere nearby. He's a strange guy, Aburame said. He's suspicious, you shouldn't trust him, Nara nodded. Now, everyone, shut up. The man who appeared shouted. My name is Morino Ibiki, and I am your examiner. I apologize for being late. Blank. The exam had been going on for 10 minutes. Naruto was frankly bored. He didn't answer any of the questions, since there was no point in it. Naruto-kun, Hinata said, handing over the answer sheet. It's okay, Hinata, believe me, there's no need for that. Besides, if they see you helping me, you might get into trouble too. Hinata blushed deeply in response and nodded. The past hour lasted a long time. Naruto, frankly speaking, was bored. Finally, it was time for the 10th question. Ibiki began the moral violence of the poor genin's brains. Having decided to help the poor future shinobi, Uzumaki said. Don't joke with me like that. I won't run away or give up. Even if I remain a genin forever, I'll still become Hokage, Dadbeo. Sasuke and Sakura smiled. They knew exactly how serious these words were. Naruto's words helped everyone sitting there. The uncertainty and confusion disappeared in that very second. Hinata looked at Naruto with admiration. For her, he always seemed the most incredible. She, unlike others, saw perseverance and courage in him. She believed that he would definitely become Hokage. And she would also show what she was worth. So that Naruto would see determination in her actions. Thanks to him, she would become just as strong. Well, since no one else wants to leave the exam. Congratulations, you passed. Before everyone had time to properly express their indignation, a strange woman with a poster flew in through the window. Hello everyone, my name is Anko Mitarashi, and I am your second examiner. Chunin Senbatsu Shiken, second stage. There were still 3 hours until the start of the second stage. There was no desire to sleep at all. Kurama slept, not experiencing any of the worries that his Jinchuriki felt. It's too stuffy, Dadbeo. Opening the window, Uzumaki stuck his head out and took a deep breath. The light breeze and fresh air helped him gather his thoughts. They had spent the entire evening discussing their plan of action. But in the end, they had agreed that improvisation was their strong point. It wasn't that they were so irresponsible and self-confident. It was just the opposite. They had no idea how to neutralize Orochimaru. And his pawns would be dangling underfoot. Naruto was sure of one thing. He would talk to Gaara when he reached the tower. Taking a deep breath, Naruto closed the window. It was time to get ready. After creating a FUNN seal on his wrist, Uzumaki began to quickly gather the necessary things, finally taking more kunai and shuriken. Naruto put on his new battle suit and went out. The closer he got to his destination, the more frightening it became. What awaits me there? There were few people near the training ground. He came a bit early. Naruto saw Sasuke and Sakura near the nearest tree. Uchiha, expressing universal calm, leaned against the tree, throwing his hands behind his back. Sakura, lying on his lap, studied the clouds. He came, really? Sasuke asked with a grin. I wouldn't forgive myself if I slept through today. Naruto plopped down next to him, smiling. What does it feel like? Sakura asked. Indescribable, said Uzumaki. He really didn't know how to describe what he felt. It was certainly scary, but this time he was more confident. The exam time was slowly approaching. Anko was already there and was discussing something with the other shinobi. Let's go, otherwise the fun will start without us, Naruto chuckled. You Saratonkachi, just don't get on Mitarashi's nerves too much. Sasuke looks at him, smirking. I didn't really want to, I snort in response. 78 genin gathered around the 44th training ground. The forest was surrounded by a fence with signs saying, no entry. Uzumaki smirked. No idiot would come here of his own free will. Sasuke, meanwhile, was watching Anko. The provocatively dressed woman was truly terrifying when angry. Her character was the complete opposite of her sensei's. Orochimaru was a slimy bastard, and Anko had always been a fighter. But she had some tricks in her arsenal that made you shiver. A long, playful tongue was just the tip of the iceberg. Sakura glanced at the people standing there. Everything was the same as last time, and at the same time, everything was different. Now, Haruno wasn't afraid just because of the thoughts of what might happen there. Catching sight of Anko's expectant smile, Haruno chuckled nervously. What a woman. So, suckers, Mitarashi began to speak. This is the 44th training ground. Or, as it is also called, the Forest of Death, the woman grinned contentedly. Soon you will find out why it has such a name. Anko wanted to convey to everyone that this was no longer a child's play. Therefore, she tried to achieve their serious attitude, even if it was by intimidating them. Naruto sighed. This forest was really dangerous, so he had no desire to contradict her. He felt a rather heavy chakra behind him. Orochimaru. Naruto could feel the killing intent coming from the woman behind him in his gut. Swallowing nervously, Uzumaki tried to calm down. Mitarashi, seeing the changes in Uzumaki, smirked contentedly, attributing it to the fact that her intimidation effect was working perfectly. Sasuke looked at Naruto with interest, then at the subject of his nervousness. Orochimaru. Being with him in his past life, he thought he knew his background. But he was wrong. When it came to the snake, you can never be sure of anything. Okay, before we get started, I need to hand you a contract, Anko says, taking out a stack of papers. By signing these, you'll be giving your consent to officially participate. Besides, someone's bound to die in this test. I don't want to take responsibility for that. Mitarashi smiles nastily again. After that, you go to that table over there to register. Now I'll explain the rules. Uzumaki didn't listen to the rest. He already knew all the rules. Deciding to visit his furry friend, he slightly closed his eyes to concentrate. Kurama, Naruto says. The Nine Tails is sitting in the lotus position, meditating. Are you thinking about something? Uzumaki asks. Kyuubi opens his eyes and looks seriously at his Jinchuriki. I think I know what you should do with Orochimaru, the fox says. Naruto's face changes as he looks at the fox. And how so? He asks. Remember that the third Hokage takes away Orochimaru's ability to perform techniques in exchange for his life. Kurama begins. Well, yeah, Naruto nods. We can do the same, and without casualties, says Kurama. Naruto sighs loudly. If during the fight you can touch his hands and pour my chakra into him, then my chakra will simply burn his chakra channels. Since for an unprepared body, the Biju chakra is poisonous. Even Orochimaru will not be able to accept it so easily. It should take a lot of time to restore the chakra channels, explains the tailed one. That's a great idea, Naruto shouts happily. They have a chance to get rid of Orochimaru before the third stage. Okay, now get out of here, or a kunai is flying at you. Naruto's eyes snap open. The sharp iron flies past, leaving a bloody streak on his cheek. Anko apparently thought Naruto had fallen asleep, and decided to wake him up in a very original way. A split second later, the woman was behind Uzumaki, running her rough tongue over the bleeding wound. Bad boy, you should listen carefully. Such self-confident ones are the first to be killed. And their blood is so sweet. Uzumaki smirks. Mitarashi-sensei, can you control yourself? Your perverted tendencies scare me. Wanting to answer something, Anko suddenly takes out a kunai. You shouldn't stand behind me. If you're not tired of living. Oh no, I really like blood too. Besides, you cut my hair, I just couldn't hold back, the woman in the hat holds out the kunai with her tongue. Naruto frowned. Orochimaru was always dangerous as hell. Uzumaki, meeting the snake Sanin's gaze, forced himself to remain calm. The last thing he needed was a fight breaking out right here. Enko handed out forms to everyone, and the genin scattered around the area to discuss the exam. Naruto needed to talk to his team urgently. Moving away from everyone, Uzumaki said. Kurama came up with an idea of what we should do with Orochimaru. Really? And what? Sakura asked in surprise. The Uchiha tensed up. I need to infuse his chakra into Orochimaru's hands. It will burn away his chakra channels, Uzumaki said. Brilliant, it will take a long time to restore. He will only be able to restore them soon if Tsunade-sama helps him. Sakura said understandingly. That means he will be temporarily unable to attack until the third stage, Uchiha nods. But it won't be that easy. We can handle it, Naruto smirks. Blank. After a thorough negotiation and signing of the document, we approached the registration desk. After completing all the formalities and receiving the scroll, we headed to our gate. Sasuke sealed the scroll into the FUNN seal on his body. We approached the 12th gate. The sound of the lock clicking and the examiner shouting. The second test of the Chunin exam has begun. We ran into the forest. There is no way back. Today is our first step towards a bright future. Chunin Senbatsu Shiken. Second stage. Part 2. The second stage of the exam began. We ran fast into the depths of the forest. The forest of death was a truly dangerous place. Now this forest was frightening again. We had already gone quite far from the gate. And we slowed down a little. We had to be extremely careful. Somewhere in the depths of the forest, a muffled scream was heard. It looks like the fun is about to begin, Haruno said without any enthusiasm. Sasuke and I nodded in agreement. This time we need to get there without incident. I wonder what Hinata's team is doing now. Hey, grief-stricken lover, be careful. I sense Orochimaru's chakra, he's 4 meters ahead underground, Kurama informed me. Thank you, Kurama, I replied to my friend. Orochimaru is 4 meters underground from us, I told my teammates. And as if on cue, when we reached our destination, a powerful gust of wind blew Sakura forward. I feel sorry for the snake, she won't leave a single living place, I thought. So, who do we have here? A female voice was heard. We have a more interesting question for you. Sasuke chuckled. What is Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin, missing nin of the Leaf Village, former member of Anbu, doing at the Chunin exam? I asked. The half-woman's eyebrows shot up. What suspicious knowledge, Orochimaru drawled contentedly. Well, if you know who I am, let's play a little game. Try to take the scroll from me, he said and swallowed it. What disgusting stuff, I shuddered. The man in the form of a woman slowly approached. The body was paralyzed with fear. A powerful ki did not allow even a calm breath. Images of one's own death floated before one's eyes as if in genjutsu. No, you won't take me like that. I had a calm conversation with Kyuubi himself, but how can Orochimaru compete with the nine-tailed beast in terms of bloodlust? Having come to our senses, Sasuke and I jumped up from the kunai flying at us. Jumping onto the branch we looked down, Orochimaru was not there. But ahead on a thick branch there was a huge snake. This is Orochimaru, the Uchiha told me. Sasuke sent fireballs towards Orochimaru, and I reinforced them with a powerful gust of wind. The snake's skin burned off, and the Sannin calmly crawled out. Damn, he's really pissing me off. He stretches his neck and crawls along a branch like a snake towards us. Orochimaru stuck out his long tongue and licked his lips. Ugh, how disgusting and nasty, Kurama expressed his opinion. You are a very interesting guy, Uchiha, I can give you the power you dream of so much, Orochimaru drawled nastily. I don't think I need your help at all, Sasuke replied. Believe me, the power that I will give you will be priceless, Sannin hissed. Fucking benefactor, damn it, I thought before using the dancing flame explosion technique. The fire took on a spiral shape, scorching everything around it. I don't need your power, Sasuke answered completely indifferently. Are you sure? You could even surpass your brother, Orochimaru chuckled. Damn asshole, always knows what to push. Okay, how will you handle this? Orochimaru said, sending out 100,000 snakes. Sasuke simply burned all the reptiles to hell except one. Orochimaru easily dodged all our attacks, while remaining untouched. The Sannin, apparently, was amused by all this, because with each of our attacks he became more and more satisfied. The fight was already dragging on, the surrounding landscape was, to put it mildly, ruined by our techniques. I was already starting to get tired. After all, a child's body cannot withstand such a powerful fight with the Sannin. And Orochimaru was not even out of breath. It's time to end this, I thought. Orochimaru must have thought so too. His neck stretched out and rushed towards Sasuke at great speed. Here it is, my chance. Throwing on a fox cloak with one tail, I push Sasuke away, and Orochimaru, not having time to stop, bites into my neck. He will not put a mark on me, Kurama's chakra will not allow it. Grabbing Orochimaru's hands, I send a large amount of Kyuubi chakra. The Sannin howls in pain, falling back. My neck hurts a little. After all, it is a forbidden technique. You fucking brat, Orochimaru shouts angrily. You were lucky now, but next time you will regret it. You have lost a lot, Sasuke-kun. You could have gained strength and power that even Itachi could not control. We will meet again, he said before disappearing. Unfortunately, not once again, I thought. Maybe we should try to finish him off. I asked Sasuke. Do you really think he won't kill us without arms? He raised an eyebrow questioningly. He's beyond our strength right now. The fact that the plan worked is a great coincidence, Sasuke chuckled. I thought, maybe Uchiha is right. Orochimaru, even without arms, is very dangerous and could easily kill us. Ah, well, whatever, let's go find Sakura, she never showed up, Uchiha tells me. I should go see Kyuubi. How are you, Kurama? I asked my tailed friend. PFF'd, I'm completely fine, I didn't even use up the minimum amount of chakra, he answered me. Well, yeah, Orochimaru is small fry to you, I chuckle. Kurama just yawned, waved his tails at me and turned away, letting me see that great nine-tailed butt. Oh well, I snorted and left. Look who we have here, Sasuke says, pointing slightly forward. Well, Sakura didn't waste her time, I whistled contentedly. Do you think I was so surprised? Haruno was simply smiling contentedly, holding the girl from the Sound Village by the hair. Her bloody smile was a terrible sight. She looked just like Orochimaru. A little further away lay two more from Sound, completely beaten. Please, take the scroll and go, the kunoichi said fearfully. Haruno, seeing us, nodded and looked at the girl again. Well, if that's what you want. Having taken the scroll, we moved forward. Sakura, aren't you being too cruel? I asked my friend. Well, I should have gotten the scroll while you were there with Orochimaru, she chuckled. One took on three, Sasuke chuckled contentedly. Well, you're not the only one who can show yourself, Haruno smiled in response. Okay, we need to go to the tower now that we have the scroll, I said. How much time has passed? Haruno asked. About 2 hours, Sasuke answered. An hour later, we reached the tower. There was a sign on the wall with a familiar message. After talking with Iruka-sensei, we went to the second floor of the tower, where the rest rooms and showers were located. Since there were still 4 days left until the end of the second exam, we had time to gather strength before the midterm exam. The only thing I wanted to do now was take a shower. A few hours later, Gaara, Temari, and Kankuro arrived. Look who came earlier, I'm surprised, Kankuro chuckled. I think you should talk to him now, while he's in a reasonable state, Kurama told me. I looked at my teammates, they nodded. I took a step forward, ending up right in front of the one-tailed Jinchuriki. Kankuro and Temari tensed up. Calm down, Gaara told them. I think you've figured out who I am, right, Gaara? I smiled at him. He nodded in agreement. I extended a clenched fist. We need to talk to our tailed ones, I chuckled. Kankuro and Temari must think I'm crazy, but it doesn't matter if Gaara understands. The younger Sobaku no extended his fist in response. The surrounding atmosphere changed in an instant, and I found myself in the sewers, with a huge golden cage in front of me. Gaara trembled behind me. The one-tailed one was clearly scaring him. This is going to be hard, I sighed resignedly. Ku, can you help me? I called to Kurama. Where would I go? The nine-tailed cat answered me. 9 tails. Surprised to see you here, Shukaku squeaked. Stop clowning around, tell me why you're driving the boy crazy. Kurama chuckled. Who else is driving whom crazy? They locked me in it, holding me as a weapon of their pathetic village, forcing me to dance to their tune. They are the ones driving me crazy. But the boy isn't to blame for this. The fox was indignant. What are you telling me about this? You are the one who hates people more than any of us. You are the true embodiment of hatred. What happened to change you? One-tailed chuckled. I met him, Kurama said, pointing at me. This Jinchuriki boy is special, he said. And I smiled warmly. After all, it was nice to hear it from him. Shukaku frowned. Well, yes, I understand his surprise. Hearing such words from the nine-tailed demon fox is very strange. I looked at Gaara. The poor guy did not understand anything anymore. His confused look even slightly amused me. Who are you that the nine-tailed beast recognizes you? Shukaku asked. Me. I'm just his Jinchuriki, and I will protect him no matter what. My dream is to rid you tailed beasts of hatred and malice. Shukaku laughed. Rid the tailed beasts of their hatred? Nine tails, your Jinchuriki is a weirdo. Perhaps, but his words are sincere, Kurama answered him in all seriousness. Okay, so what do you want from me? Shukaku asked. Please, try to be friends with your Jinchuriki, stop driving him crazy, he's an ordinary child, I said. PFF'd. Well, fine, Shukaku muttered discontentedly. I turned to Gaara. Listen, Gaara, no matter what, you are my friend, and Shukaku will become your friend too. You do not exist in this world to kill. And you are not alone in this world, you have me and your brother and sister. From now on, you should be happy. Gaara blinked his eyes in surprise, then asked a little hesitantly. Am I your friend? I smiled and nodded. Yes, Gaara, you are my friend. Okay, it's time for us to go back, thank you, rest. The nine tails nodded and disappeared. When I opened my eyes, I was surprised to see that I was sitting with Gaara, leaning against the wall, and there were 4 pairs of eyes above us. I looked at Gaara, he was sleeping. Finally, he would get some sleep. Apparently, Kankuro and Tamari noticed this. What did you do? Kankuro asked. It's okay, I think Gaara will tell you about it himself, I chuckled. I think we need to rest, Sasuke chuckled. You're damn right, Uchiha. I stretched sweetly. I could use some sleep too. The next 4 days passed quietly, the day of the intermediate stage was approaching. All this time I was thinking about what had happened. I urgently need to start training. The fact that we are alive is just a miracle. Orochimaru almost wiped us out, he certainly would not have killed Sasuke, but I am questionable. I hope he does not appear at the 3rd stage. It is good that everything worked out with Shukaku. Sasuke and Sakura, apparently, thought too much about all this. However, the remaining days were spent in thoughts and reflections. Just like last time, there were only 21 people left. This time, Orochimaru was not in sight. I looked at Kabuto. Thanked Kami, we did not cross paths with him, however, it was clear that he was nervous. And so, we stand in front of the Hokage and our senseis, preparing to listen to the instructions and rules for the intermediate stage. Commentary on Chunin Senbatsu Shiken. 2nd stage, Part 2. I haven't been here for a while. My dears, to be honest I didn't really like the chapter. The fight could have been described more colorfully, but I can't do it. I love you very much. Qualifying round. The qualifying round, like last time, was held in a large hall with a 2nd floor, which was an observation platform. In the hall there was a statue of hands that formed a seal of concentration. Above the statue there was a separate observation floor, which was intended for the Hokage. Enko, as the examiner of the 2nd stage, congratulated the genin on successfully passing the 2nd stage of the exam, wishing them luck in the next fight. Meanwhile, the genin standing in a line peered into the faces of those who had already passed the 2nd stage. You saw it, Sakura took on those 3 sound ninjas by herself. I'm just amazed at how strong she became. No wonder Sasuke-kun is interested in her, she's not that weak girl anymore, Ino said, looking at her friend. Shikamaru meanwhile looked at Naruto and Sasuke, mentally noting that they looked pretty good. No wonder, they managed to recover after arriving first. How did they manage to do that? Naruto only glanced at Hinata's team, sincerely worried about her. He wasn't particularly worried about the others, knowing the outcome of their upcoming battle in advance. I definitely need to support her before the start, he noted to himself. Sasuke didn't pay attention to anything at all, thinking that the exam would be too boring. Standing in front of him, Might Guy, like last time, tried to start a conversation with Kakashi. Saying that they were lucky, of course, but it wouldn't happen again. Kakashi, not paying any attention to Guy's words, looked at the Hokage, and when he finally noticed him, he caused a storm of indignation in the green beast with his cold-blooded behavior. Kakashi just shrugged, again ignoring his eternally strange friend, and looked at the Hokage. Naruto, seeing this picture, quietly chuckled, noting to himself that Kakashi's indifference can sometimes even compete with Shikamaru. Might Guy's team, also seeing the eternal rival of Sensei, came to different conclusions. 10-10 decided that Kakashi-sensei had already won their entire argument in advance, and Lee, fired up by the eternal power of youth, said that he would never let down his one and only sensei. Kurenai-sensei's team was also watching. Hinata, looking at Naruto, was sincerely happy that he had passed the second stage, and Kiba looked at Gaara with displeasure. Although he didn't have to be afraid of him anymore. The Sand team itself did not take its eyes off Naruto. They did not understand what he did to their brother, but he had changed for the better. He stopped looking like a murderous maniac, answering and talking quite calmly. What surprised them most was that he apologized. In any case, they were happy about such changes, although it was suspicious. Gaara himself also looked at Naruto. His feelings were mixed. Misunderstanding, gratitude and curiosity raged inside him. Thanks to him, Gaara could now sleep peacefully, and he did not have a great desire to kill anyone. Looking at this guy, one would think that this is the most sincere person he had ever met. Meanwhile, the selection round was about to begin. After the Hokage's opening speech and explanation of the nature of the Chunin exam itself, the examiner, who seemed to be very ill with something, asked the participants if anyone would like to voluntarily withdraw from further participation. At this point, Naruto looked at Kabuto's team with interest. He was curious about their next steps. Oddly enough, even though they had changed the course of events in the second stage, it did not affect the fact that Kabuto had still merged, citing absolute chakra exhaustion. The examiner announced the start of the preliminary exam, causing a storm of indignation that many had only just arrived and were still recovering. And yet, all the participants took their places on the second floor until the names of the first participants appeared on the board. Sasuke Uchiha and Yoroi Akado, the examiner announced. Just like last time, Uchiha noted to himself. Good luck to you, I know you won't lose, Sasuke, Naruto told him. Naturally, Uchiha just chuckled. Good luck, Sasuke, Haruno also supported him. They went to the middle of the hall and listened to the examiner's instructions. They got ready. Sasuke knew his abilities very well. Last time he only won because he used Lee's technique. This time I need to do things a little differently, he decided to himself. Yoroi immediately rushed at Sasuke, throwing shuriken at him, which Uchiha immediately parried. Then Yoroi, stretching his hand forward, lit it with chakra, clearly preparing to draw chakra out of Sasuke. And then Yoroi swings his hand, trying to reach Uchiha, but Sasuke, grabbing the opponent's hand, with a powerful kick, reinforced with chakra, hits him in the jaw. Yoroi is thrown up from such a powerful blow. Uchiha, without a second's hesitation, without waiting for him to fall, jumps up and punches Yoroi in the stomach. He falls to the arena floor with great speed from another blow. Hayate, looking at Akado, coughing slightly, says. The winner is Sasuke Uchiha. From the balcony, Ino and Naruto's joyful squeals are heard. That Dobi, he never changes, Uchiha chuckles. You look good, Uzumaki says as Sasuke walks up to them. You're doing well, Kakashi supports him. Sakura smiles and winks at Uchiha. Unsurprised by the fight ending so quickly, the other participants only mentally note that nothing else was expected from the Uchiha. The next fight was between Zaku Abumi and Aburame Shino. This fight was the same. Shino blocked the holes in Zaku's palms with the help of beetles. When he tried to attack him, the sound wave, finding no way out, bursts inside, making holes. Thus, Aburame won. Team 7 didn't watch the next fight at all. Naruto looked at Hinata with interest. He was very afraid that Neji could hurt her very badly. On the other hand, he knew that she wouldn't give up, and if Naruto told her to stop in time, she would be upset and think that he didn't believe in her. Uzumaki sighed heavily. How difficult it was. All he could do was leave everything as it was, despite his worries. The fight had already ended with Kankura winning. And next were Sakura Haruno and Ino Yamanaka. According to the rule, the girls had to enter the arena first. Sakura chuckled to herself, looking at her rather nervous friend. There's no way I can beat her, she dealt with those three at once in the forest of death. It would be wiser to retreat. Sorry, but I give up, Yamanaka says. Haruno, not surprised by this outcome, looks at Ino silently. How? Why? Asuma exclaims in surprise. After all, he knew their relationship with each other very well. And that Ino would rather kiss Shikamaru than voluntarily surrender in a fight with Sakura. Asuma-sensei, we've seen Haruno in action. Ino is simply assessing her capabilities sensibly. Sakura is clearly stronger than Ino. Sensei sighs and nods silently in response. Kakashi smiles to himself as he watches this scene. His team is really good. The next fights, such as Tamari vs. Tenten and Shikamaru Nara vs. Kin, were all done exactly like the first time. Tamari was stronger in long-range fights, and Shikamaru, as expected, was quick-witted. And finally Naruto's fight came. When the board showed the names of Naruto Uzumaki and Kiba Inuzuka, Kiba smiled contentedly, thinking about how he could possibly lose. Before leaving, Naruto stopped near Hinata. "Look at me, Hinata, I'll definitely win," he said and jumped off the balcony. Hyuga blushed deeply at this statement, quietly whispering, "Good luck, Naruto." "What a show-off," Kurama snorted. Sasuke and Sakura were of the same opinion. "You better give up right away, Naruto," Kiba chuckled. "Give up? You've got something mixed up, Kiba, I don't know the word give up," Naruto said confidently. "Well, blame yourself, I warned you," said Kiba. At first, Kiba tried to disable Naruto with one blow. Kiba used the four-legged technique, standing on his hands, he wanted to hit Naruto in the stomach with his elbow. But Uzumaki, grabbing his hand, hit Inuzuka with his left leg. Kiba flew back, crashing into the wall. "You're not as weak as I thought," Kiba chuckled, raising himself slightly. Blood began to flow from his mouth. "This is even more interesting," he added. The people standing above opened their mouths wide. No one except Sakura and Sasuke believed in Naruto's powers. So it was a big surprise for everyone. Kurenai looked at Naruto in shock. "This boy has changed a lot. Kakashi, what have you done to him?" Meanwhile, Kiba used smoke bombs and threw them at Naruto, but the Uzumaki dispersed them with the wind. "He can already master elemental techniques," Shikamaru thought with surprise. "Naruto has really become stronger." This was the opinion of everyone who knew Naruto at least a little. Then Naruto, deciding not to drag out the fight, rushed straight at Kiba, hitting him in the stomach with all his might. Kiba flew back to the wall, hitting his head hard. Silence fell in the hall. This Naruto was unfamiliar to everyone. Hayate, looking at Kiba, decided that there was no point in continuing the fight, and declared Naruto the winner. Might looked at Kakashi and the arena in surprise. He was very surprised that he was able to train them like that. All three of them had passed, despite the fact that many considered his team to be quite weak, not counting Sasuke. He looked at him defiantly. "Kakashi, my eternal rival, I have to admit that your team is quite strong." Hitaki listened to Guy again, but seeing his gaze, he turned around and blinked innocently. "Did you say something, Guy?" he asked. Might Guy, unable to bear such treatment for the second time, roared in despair. The desire to beat his face was strong, and he held on only by willpower. Fortunately, even Naruto could envy him in this. Uzumaki went up to the arena and was awarded approving chuckles from the team and, "Well done, Naruto," from Kakashi-sensei. But Uzumaki didn't really care about that now. Naruto-kun," Hinata said hesitantly. She handed him the ointment, very hesitantly. Naruto almost squealed with joy. Fortunately, Kurama had called him to calm down. "Thank you, Hinata," he said, taking the ointment. Meanwhile, the names of the next participants appeared on the board. Hinata became very tense when she saw her name. "Listen, Hinata, I believe in you. I'm sure that no matter what anyone says, you're very strong. Believe in yourself. No matter what happens, for me you're already a winner," Naruto said this looking at Hinata confidently. Those standing next to him chuckled with approval. And Kakashi and Kurenai smiled. "Oh, look at that, he's a real cool guy," Kurama laughed. Uzumaki silently ignored this statement. "Is it really Naruto? I doubt it," Ino said to Sakura. "Oh, that's not all he can surprise us with," Haruno smiled. "An unpredictable man," Nara nodded. Kakashi smiled. Minato-sensei would be proud of him. Neji and Hinata walked down to the arena. Naruto's words encouraged her, so she walked out, looking at her brother with confidence. Neji, as expected, began to warn and dissuade her, but it was useless. "I warned you," he said, activating the Byakugan. They took a special stance. While the fight was going on, there was a discussion about the Byakugan upstairs. Naruto didn't listen to it at all. He looked down with concern. Every time Hinata stood up and said the words Naruto said, barely holding on, Uzumaki almost went crazy. The desire to kill Hyuga, despite the fact that deep down he wasn't such a bastard, increased. Sasuke and Kakashi forcibly held him back, because Naruto was constantly eager to beat that idiot's face. Kurenai looked in surprise at how Hinata changed after Naruto's words, and how Uzumaki was worried about Hyuga. But at the last moment, When Neji, even after the words that the fight was over, rushed at Hinata, Naruto, ahead of everyone, jumped right into the arena in front of Neji, and Hyuga's blow hit Naruto. The jaws of those standing in the arena, however, as well as the examiner and Hinata, met the floor. Naruto coughed up blood. Nobody asked you to be a hero, Neji said coldly. You're just pathetic, Naruto said with a smirk. Having lost her strength and clearly in critical condition, Hinata fell. The medics took her away on a stretcher. Uzumaki, clenching his teeth until they bled, once again swore on Hinata's blood that he would beat all the nonsense out of his empty head. Neji only responded to this statement by saying that someone born a loser is unable to change their fate. Naruto couldn't stand this statement and laughed hysterically. Hearing it the second time was even more delirious than the first. And it was even more irritating. You're doing well, Kakashi said. I'll be a good boy when I grind him into dust, Naruto replied. Dobi, you are as incorrigible as usual, Sasuke said. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, this is beyond cure, he laughed in response. Yes, Naruto, you are so. Naruto, Nara shook his head. Once again I'm convinced that you rarely think with your head, Sakura sighs. The next fight was between Gaara and Rock Lee. Since Gaara was now much calmer, Naruto was confident that everything would be fine. Overall, the fight went the same way, only Gaara did not injure Lee too much. It all ended with Lee, despite the fact that he fought very well, being defeated in the end. Meanwhile, there is only one fight left. Shoji loses to the sound guy. Then they are announced about the third stage, which is scheduled to take place in a month. And also the opponents they will face in the third stage are announced. Naruto Uzumaki, Neji Hyuga Shikamaru Nara, Sobaku no Tamari Uchiha Sasuke, Sobaku no Gaara Sakura Haruno, Dosu Kinuta Abarame Shino, Dog no Kankuro. With a sigh of relief and clearly tired from all this workload, the Genins sigh in relief. Finally, they have time to rest. Commentary on the qualifying round. From the beta. Dear readers, sorry that the chapter was delayed. I was sick, so I couldn't check it right away. Jiraiya the Toad Sannin from Mount Mayamboku. Listen, old man, haven't they taught you that it's bad to spy on women? Said Ebisu sensei. Kakashi finally dumped him on that idiot. But Naruto didn't resist much this time, anticipating the long-awaited meeting. And so Naruto stood in front of Jiraiya and barely restrained himself from attacking him. He had been waiting for this moment for the entire week since the end of the second stage. He hadn't slept at night. The tall, white-haired man, standing in front of him with his back turned around. In a split second, a toad appeared under his feet. Sticking out its long, rough tongue, it grabbed Ebisu sensei and slammed him hard into the ground. Naruto grinned, it all looked comical. Uzumaki stepped over the failed sensei and confidently stood in front of the old man. Listen, you old pervert. How dare you turn off my sensei? The Jinchuriki began in feigned indignation. Who are you anyway? The Sannin turned around, took a pompous pose and loudly declared, I am the Toad Hermit from Mount Mayamboku, the great Sannin Jiraiya. Kurama snorted inwardly, expressing his opinion of his majesty. And you are interfering with my gathering materials for this book. Jiraiya said, pointing to the book that Kakashi usually went crazy about. So you're the one writing this book? Uzumaki said. You know this book? Oh, it's already so popular. Jiraiya said proudly. This is pure obscenity. Uzumaki was indignant. You are an old pervert who writes pornography and spies on women. Hearing this, all the women ran out of the bathhouse screaming. What have you done? My material. Jiraiya shouted indignantly. You should teach me. After all, it was you who turned off my sensei. Uzumaki continued this theater. Kurama was sincerely surprised by the acting abilities of his Jinchuriki. Naruto expressed all these feelings so skillfully. No way in my life. I won't teach someone who doesn't understand anything about creativity. Besides, I don't like children. Uzumaki chuckled. What if we come to an agreement? Jiraiya laughed. What can you offer me, little one? Well, if I show you a woman with beautiful curves, will you agree to become my sensei? Uzumaki began. The Sannin looked at the boy with curiosity and interest. And where can you find her? First, give your consent, Uzumaki said. Okay, I agree, just show it to me, Jiraiya said in anticipation. Naruto chuckled again. Sexy, but jutsu. There was a small puff, and here in front of the old man stood a slender blonde, whose charms were barely hidden by small clouds of smoke. The old man, whose heart was weak, finally lost his composure in front of such charms, screaming joyfully. Blood flowed from his nose in large streams. What a pervert, really, the nine-tailed chuckled to himself. Then, noting something to himself, he said, turning to Naruto, listen, little bugger, you're not bad. Shut up. Red shaggy carpet, Uzumaki replied, blushing with indignation. Well, what, now you're going to teach me? Naruto said in a languid voice. Jiraiya looked at Uzumaki with a smirk. Okay, I agree. And now they were sitting in the lotus position by the river as if nothing had happened. For Naruto, this was one of the incredible things. The perverted hermit was now next to him. Somewhere in his chest, there was worry about the future. Fear that he would lose it again. But the Jinchuriki pushed these feelings far away. Now he needed to think about what was happening at the moment. Okay, before I start teaching you, I need to know what you can do already. Jiraiya asked. Well, I can already walk on trees and water, I know several elemental techniques. Also the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu technique in ideal format. I also know about another chakra that I have and I can use it, Uzumaki said as if it were obvious. The Sannin looked at Naruto in shock and disbelief. Then you can demonstrate walking on water and a vertical surface and show one of the techniques. And then we will build on what you can already do. Uzumaki nodded. Having sent chakra to his legs, Naruto easily walked along a nearby tree, and then ran a couple of times. Then he walked on water, periodically sending the required amount of chakra to his legs. Damn it, he walks perfectly on both water and trees. If he shows me an elemental technique in such a perfect execution, then I will definitely undertake to teach him. Naruto, having come out onto dry land and turned towards the river, folded his hands into seals. Kaden. Great fireball. A large puff of fire came out of his mouth. The fire technique, without colliding with an obstacle, flew a sufficient distance and then evaporated. The river, under the influence of such heat, heated up and began to boil. Jiraiya looked at his, now definitely, student in shock. Uzumaki, deciding not to wait for him to come to his senses, amazed the man even more. He folded his hands in another seal and created a huge gust of wind. The tree standing on the other side of the river was left without green leaves. This kid is clearly a genius. His execution of elemental techniques is perfect. Okay, I see that you're doing pretty well and don't need any improvements, Jiraiya says, not hiding his joy. Naruto was truly happy. The feeling when the person you admire is proud of you is incredible. Calm down, just like a little child, Kurama chuckled. But Naruto didn't hear him. First, tell me who your opponent is, asked Jiraiya. Hyuga Neji. Yes, the opponent is not weak, Jiraiya frowned. But you have me, so, you can handle it, the Sannin chuckled. Okay, if you have shadow clones, then we will use it. There is not much time until the next exam. Create several dozen clones. Let the first 10 practice taijutsu, I will also put clones at each of the 10 and control them. You will not learn taijutsu for no reason, you will learn to parry Hyuga's blows. Many believe that they can only be defeated in taijutsu if you know their fighting style. Partially, this is true, I know a few tricks. Okay, then create 10 more clones, I will show you a couple more elemental techniques. And finally, we will study the summoning technique, Jiraiya finished. Naruto was jubilant. What could be better than intensive training with a perverted hermit? Having created the required number of clones and sent them along with Jiraiya's clones, Naruto and the Sannin sat down near the same river. After several hours of intensive training, there was already progress. There were no problems with the summoning technique, since Kurama easily shared his chakra. But then he was again awaited by the Toad Boss's test. In general, he returned home terribly tired. Jiraiya had already made a schedule for his training for the near future. Despite the pain in his whole body, Naruto, stopping in front of the threshold of the house, suddenly changed his mind about going in. For some reason, he wanted to take a walk. Walking along the streets of Konoha, Naruto thought about the upcoming events. Old Man Third, he didn't know if he would be okay now, or if they would be able to stop Orochimaru. The sudden feeling of excitement flared up too quickly. There was still so much ahead. Uzumaki didn't know how it would end this time. He didn't know if he would be able to save his loved ones or if he would lose them again. Hey, Naruto, Sakura's familiar voice called out from behind him. The Kunoichi was leaving the Konoha hospital. She was also training hard. As it turned out, Sakura's mother was a pretty good sensei. How was your training with Jiraiya-sama? I saw a huge toad in the window, you must have done well, Haruno said happily. Yes, I had to prove to Gamabunta that I was worthy of being his protege. All in all, everything went quite well. And how are you doing? Uzumaki asked. I went to the hospital, improved my Irionanjutsu skills. I also smashed 2 training grounds to smithereens, she chuckled in response. Yo, Naruto, Sakura, are you finished already? Said the approaching sensei, Sasuke walking next to him. I heard that Jiraiya-sama became your teacher, you are very lucky, Hatake said. Yeah, and I asked him for a book for you, Uzumaki chuckled. Taking another copy of the book, Come, Paradise, from his pocket, Naruto handed this creation to Sensei. Kakashi's eyes instantly lit up with the fire that was usually present in Might Guy before another training session. Okay, guys, you must be very tired. I advise you to get some sleep. And I still have urgent matters to attend to, Kakashi retreated at the same moment. You should find a girl, Sensei, Sasuke snorted. Otherwise, you'll be left alone with this book in your right hand, he added more quietly. Sakura burst out laughing and Naruto was laughing his ass off. You've become too brave, apparently my training wasn't that effective. Tomorrow I'll strengthen it to such an extent that you won't be able to throw your stupid jokes, Kakashi said emotionlessly and disappeared. Poor thing, he's probably already got blisters on his hands, Kurama laughed inside. Well, who pulled my tongue? Uchiha asked himself. Okay, I think it's time for me to go home, and you should go on a date instead, Uzumaki winked at his friends. We'll definitely do that, Uchiha nodded. The sun had finally set in Konoha. There were still 30 days of grueling training ahead, for which Team 7 was definitely ready. The long-awaited fight. The alarm clock chimed, a choice curse, and the piece of iron had already flown out the window. Why had he, the hero of the Fourth World War, the Anbu captain, seemingly invincible and omnipotent, not been able to sleep all night last night and was worried about the upcoming fight with Hyuga just like some genin? Because you are a genin, blockhead, Kurama laughed. You are as far from the highly respected title of Hokage as you are from Mount Myoboku on foot. Thank you very much, Kurama, for such a morning greeting, Uzumaki snorted at this. The boy took a deep breath. He knew that he was in for a much more serious fight than the fight with Neji. Getting out of bed and shaking his head, Uzumaki headed for the shower. Cold water was what he needed right now. There were still 2 hours until the start of the 3rd stage. Having completed all the necessary procedures, he headed to the place where the last stage was taking place. His head was in chaos. He didn't know what could happen, or how he would need to act if the snake did come. Naruto remembered how he met Hinata before the upcoming fight. How worried he was, and how she was able to cheer him up. He wanted to see her again. And so, having arrived at that very training ground, he saw Hyuga. Naruto-kun, Hinata jumped back, frightened. Then, embarrassed, she asked, "What are you doing here? The final stage is about to begin." Naruto barely restrained himself from going over and hugging her. "I'm just a little nervous, I thought a walk would help. I became a genin at this very spot," Uzumaki smiled. Hinata looked warmly at Naruto. "Hinata, tell me, Neji is your cousin, right?" Uzumaki said, remembering his previous words. Hinata nodded tensely. Naruto knew she truly loved him like a brother. He remembered how after the war she thought about him almost every day. "I know that your brother is very strong, but I will definitely win this fight, you'll see," he smiled at her. "I believe you, Naruto-kun. And I know you can handle it," Hinata said, a little embarrassed. "You're very strong, Naruto-kun." Naruto smiled, just like a child. Damn, he had heard those words before. But it was so nice to hear them again. So he wanted to allow himself this little performance. "But I don't think I'm strong. To tell you the truth, I often do stupid things, and generally behave stupidly. In fact, I consider myself a complete loser." The words he said then are the same words he says now. Despite the fact that many things were no longer the same as before. And he had changed a lot. The essence of what he said did not change. He really considered himself a big loser. "It's not like that, Naruto-kun," Hinata said desperately. The fire of determination burned in the girl's eyes, and at the same time she looked at him with such love and admiration, which only increased over the years. "You are strong, Naruto-kun, even when you lost, you did it with dignity. Despite everything, you always moved forward and did not give up. Only thanks to you I was able to change. Although many did not even notice it. But I really did change, and all thanks to you." The girl finished speaking, and her cheeks again traitorously blushed. Hinata did not know why she was embarrassed every time, but she simply could not feel differently yet. Naruto beamed, he knew she would say that. But it was too nice not to let her hear those words again. She gave him boundless confidence. Now he believed that even Kagaya could win. "Thank you, Hinata, I was really depressed, but thanks to you, I feel better. Okay, I have to go to the exam. Then, already leaving, Naruto said. You know, Hinata, I always thought you were pretty weird and very withdrawn. But you know, I like girls like you. She's about to melt from your words, snorted the demon fox. Naruto, stretching contentedly, ran to the place of the battle. Ahead of him was an arena, very similar to a coliseum. Naruto again felt that thrill and a sense of unprecedented anticipation. Hundreds of spectators were sitting above, waiting for the important event to begin. A little higher up was a place for especially important guests. To be more precise, the place from which the Hokage and Kazekage were watching. Uzumaki looked in their direction warily. He did not sense Orochimaru's chakra. Then he turned his gaze to the examiner and the participants standing near him. Everyone was already here. Uzumaki was expectedly late. But Sasuke was not there yet. It looks like the topic is going to be late now, he thought. Coming closer to Sakura, he asked. Where is Sasuke? With Kakashi-sensei, the girl snorted in response. Naruto turned his gaze to Neji, who felt his gaze and looked at him with his usual arrogance. Well, never mind, I'll beat the crap out of you, the Jinchuriki thought confidently. Ladies and gentlemen, I am glad that you have gathered for the final round of the Chunin exam. There will be 10 participants in this round. Let us begin the final round, the Hokage's voice rang out. The first fight will be between Uzumaki Naruto and Neji Hyuga. The rest of you I will ask to go to the waiting room, said the examiner. Okay, guys, despite the fact that the battlefield has changed, the same rules apply here. That is, no rules. The fight will only end if the opponent dies, or when one of you surrenders. However, I can stop the fight if I deem it necessary. Well, here we go. Naruto was shaking with anger, fire burning in his eyes. Do you want to say something? Hugo chuckled. I'll beat you up, was all Naruto said. Even though Naruto was much stronger than last time, he knew perfectly well that close combat was not the best option. But he did not want to use techniques. Naruto remembered that every time he tried to defeat Hinata in taijutsu, it turned out to be a failure. After all, in taijutsu, the Hyuga were incomparable. Neji activated his Byakugan. He saw how confident Naruto was. As if he thought he would actually win. This amused Neji even more. I can't wait to see the despair in your eyes, Hugo chuckled. Naruto could only defeat him by using one of his wind elemental techniques. But if he defeated him now, he would no longer have a chance to knock all the nonsense out of his head. Uzumaki sighed heavily. He couldn't end the fight right away, as he wanted. And when, one wonders, did he get a job as a psychologist for everyone? Naruto created 2 clones. One attacked Neji from behind, the other from above. Hyuga, as expected, dodged. You, loser, do you really want to become Hokage? Only the chosen ones become Hokage. Those who were destined to become them. And losers like you will never become Hokage. Naruto began to slowly boil. He was irritated by this nonsense, both then and now. What nonsense are you talking about? How can you even decide for everyone? Fate. Don't make me laugh. Fate is just an excuse for weaklings who are afraid to make decisions and build their lives the way they want. You can live your whole life and blame everything on fate, justifying and comforting yourself that doing anything is pointless. After all, everything has already been decided. Or you can stop whining and talking nonsense and build your own destiny. Naruto thought his words sounded too loud. Uzumaki exhaled. He builds his own destiny. Naruto created 100 clones and attacked from above. But Neji used the heavenly whirlwind technique. Do you think it's that easy? Do you think you can become Hokage if you just want it badly enough? But it's not. Our fate was decided from the start. Neji stood his ground. Just give up already, you can't beat me. I have nothing against you, he said. But I have a lot against you. You called Hinata a loser. I don't give a damn about your family troubles. But you had no right to humiliate her like that. I'll prove to you that all your nonsense about fate is your own fear. Where did you even get all this from? What made me think that? Well, since you're interested, I'll tell you, said Hugo, removing the bandage. A familiar seal appeared on his forehead. Naruto silently listened to the story he already knew. In the future, Naruto found the seal that freed Hugo. Hinata's father approved of Naruto's idea to free everyone from this seal. A person's fate is predetermined from the very beginning. Your fate was predetermined from the moment I became your opponent. Just give up already. Haven't you realized yet that I don't know how to give up? Besides, I won't lose to a weakling who blames fate for everything. What do you know? Hugo got angry. You will never understand what it means to be marked with a brand. Naruto laughed a lot. Uzumaki raised his head up and started laughing loudly. Oh, don't worry, I know what it means no worse than you do. And you're just a coward. Uzumaki shouted. Hugo's expression changed dramatically. The last drops of patience evaporated. At that moment, Naruto realized that he was standing dangerously close to Hugo. Neji, deciding to end everything here and now, got into a stance. 64 hits. He shouted. Uzumaki bent over, blood involuntarily flowing from his mouth. It's over, Neji said, deciding that he had already won. Oh, really? Uzumaki drawled sarcastically. Maybe you should take a closer look. Neji concentrated. What? It can't be. But I blocked all your chakra points, said Hugo. What he saw was incredible. Chakra was still flowing through the chakra channels. You probably haven't figured it out yet. Naruto chuckled. I'm not going to lose. A shadow clone jumped out from the ground and Neji felt a powerful blow to his blind spot. How did he know? I should have guessed that you would use this technique. It's your favorite, Neji said with the last of his strength. You know, I failed the entrance exam 3 times because of this very technique. It never worked for me. So don't you dare talk to me about fate. Fate is a fragile thing, you shouldn't rely on it. The winner is Uzumaki Naruto, the examiner announced. Applause and loud cheers from Sakura were heard from the stands. Naruto looked up. Unfortunately, Hinata was not there. Uzumaki suddenly remembered that they tried to kidnap her. A feeling of anxiety enveloped him. Don't worry, she'll be saved, you remember? Kurama said soothingly. The Jinchuriki sighed. Yes, he was right, and besides, it was better for him to be here now. Sasuke and Gaara's fight was, as expected, postponed. Dissatisfied sighs were heard. Naruto snorted. They just wanted a show. The next fight was supposed to be between Sobaku no Kankuro and Shino Aburame. But Kankuro surrendered, thus Shino became the winner. And before the examiner announced the next pair of opponents, Temari had already jumped into the arena, waiting for her opponent. What? A girl again? How problematic. I'm too lazy, I don't want to. Naruto, standing next to him, chuckled. No, my friend, I won't let you get lost so early. Just as he was about to give up, Nara felt himself being pushed down from behind. Cursing the loudest ninja, Shikamaru fell onto the arena and spread out on the ground like a star. This is what an incorrigible person is. You'll thank me later. Nara heard from Uzumaki. Shikamaru categorically disagreed. But who asked him? In general, the fight between Shikamaru and Temari ended as expected. Nara, showing brilliant intellect and resourcefulness, also brilliantly surrendered, which caused indignation and resentment at the same time. You're just unbearable, Naruto chuckled as the genius stood up. You're the one talking, snorted Nara. The next fight was supposed to be between Sakura and Dosu. But the sound guy, already knowing his opponent, hastily surrendered, wanting to stay alive. By this time, Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei had just arrived. Naruto snorted in displeasure. You are punctual as always. Uchiha just smiled. Uchiha Sasuke and dog, but Gaara, the examiner announced the fight. And Uchiha jumped down from the stands. There were sighs and shouts. They had been expecting this fight from the very beginning. Naruto looked at Gaara with interest. He was absolutely calm. Deciding to start the fight, Sasuke created 3 fireballs, but the technique was stopped by sand. Gaara, not waiting for Sasuke to strike again, created a large number of sand needles from the sand and attacked the Uchiha. Sasuke burned the technique with fire. Then the Uchiha, having created Chidori in his hand, rushed at Gaara and was about to strike. But his hand was met by sand. Gaara's absolute defense. The fight would have continued for a long time. But suddenly noise was heard from all sides. Konoha was under attack. Temari and Kankuro jumped from the stands. Grabbing Gaara, they rushed away from the battlefield. At this time, under a large barrier, the Hokage was fighting the Case-Cage. Apparently, the Case-Cage decided not to retreat, despite Orochimaru's absence. He decided to deal with Hiruzen himself. Naruto, for the first time in a long time, did not know what to do. He really wanted to help Hiruzen. But leaving Gaara was impossible, because his task was to free Shukaku. Naruto, let's go, we have no choice, we have to go after Gaara. The Hokage can handle the Case-Cage. He is the Hokage after all, Sakura said. Naruto nodded. They had to stop them before he released Shukaku. Wait, take Pakun, Kakashi said, fighting off more shinobi. And Shikamaru will go with you, Hatake said. Wake him up, Kakashi said. Sakura approached the guy, who was desperately pretending to be under genjutsu. But Sakura understood everything perfectly well. Shikamaru, come on, Haruno said, slapping the guy. The poor guy jumped up in fright, holding his injured cheek. This is all problematic, I don't want to participate in this, said Nara. But again, no one listened to him. The strange dog bit his hand and ran away. Naruto and Sakura ran ahead after him. Sasuke is already chasing them, Naruto said. After a while, Naruto realized that shinobi had been sent after them. As far as Uzumaki remembered, there were 8 of them. We're being chased, Pakun said, confirming. Then someone has to stay and hold them off, Sakura said. I'll do it, Shikamaru answered, sighing slightly. Great, Shika, we're counting on you, I smiled. After a while, the chase stopped. Shikamaru did a brilliant job. Shika really is a genius after all. When the boys approached the place where Pakun said Sasuke was, they saw Tamari fighting the Uchiha, trying to stop him. Sasuke made a hand gesture that he would handle her himself. Go ahead and stop Gaara, he said. Not so fast, Kankuro chuckled as we nearly caught up with them. I won't let you pass. Naruto, go ahead, I can handle the puppeteer, Sakura said, stretching her arms and grinning. Uzumaki nodded. After all, she had already dealt with the puppeteer, albeit in a past life, but still. He rushed after Gaara. I'll talk to Gaara myself, after all, he's fine now, the Jinchuriki addressed Kurama. I don't think that's true, Kurama interrupted him. What are you talking about? Naruto asked. It's the seal. I just remembered something. There was something wrong with the seal that held the one tail. The seal is broken, and that's why it's causing the one tail to go crazy and torment its host. Then I have all the more reason to deal with him, Naruto said. When they approached, Gaara was screaming in pain and holding his head. He had almost completely acquired Shukaku's form. Apparently, the seal had gone completely out of control. Gaara had unwittingly used the forced sleep technique. Damn it, not this, Naruto thought. But it was too late. Shukaku was freed, and he was not himself. Pakun, you better hide, the leaf genin said. The dog nodded in agreement and darted into the bushes. I'm free, I'll wipe you all out, the raccoon screamed. We'll have to call the toad boss, Naruto chuckled. Summoning technique. A huge toad appeared under my feet. Fortunately, the boy had gained his final trust last time. To avoid problems, he had guessed that this mess would still happen. What, you brat, do you need help? Gamabunda chuckled. Yes, Toad boss, Shukaku is out of control, the seal is driving him crazy. I must wake Gaara up immediately, the nine-tailed Jinchuriki explained. I see, little one. Okay, now we'll have some fun, said the toad. Come here, overgrown toad. I won't leave a single wet spot of you. Shukaku was spraying at the same time. We'll see about that, Gamabunda shouted, sending out water bullets. Wind element. Air bullets. Shukaku shouted back. No, that won't work, we need to wake Gaara up immediately. Uzumaki thought. Naruto, let's use the transformation technique. I have to grab onto him, Gamabunda suggested in time. Yes, Toad boss, the young shinobi nodded. And Kurama popped into his head, as always. Well, he couldn't think of anyone with claws other than the nine-tailed one. And I'm quite handsome, the nine-tailed said as the toad turned into him. Naruto snorted. Come here, Gamabunta shouted and jumped, catching Shukaku. Now, go ahead and wake him up, he said to Uzumaki. He tried to come closer, but Shukaku held him back with sand again. Like hell I'll give up, Naruto yelled back. His hands were painfully squeezed. There was no other choice, so he headbutted Gaara with all his might. Blood flowed from his forehead. No, Shukaku screamed, losing his form. Gaara fell to the ground, exhausted. He was shaking with fear. Gamabunda left, and Naruto fell to the ground with Gaara. No, don't come near me. I'm dangerous, Gaara said. You are not dangerous. You are not guilty of anything. Your seal is broken. This is neither your fault nor Shukaku's fault, Uzumaki said. Why are you trying to help me? Gaara asked, confused. Because I'm your friend, said the fair-haired guy. Friend? Gaara asked. I don't have friends, I live to kill. Naruto crawled closer. He wanted to prove to that guy again that he was a man, that he had friends and family. Gaara closed his eyes, expecting a blow. But, having come very close, Uzumaki leaned against his head. You're my friend, Gaara. Once we fix your seal, everything will be fine. Gaara opened his eyes in surprise. You're a strange guy, Uzumaki Naruto, he said. By this time Kankuro, Temari, and behind them Sasuke and Sakura arrived. It's okay, Gaara said, seeing his sister's worried look. Let's go home, I'm too tired. Temari and Kankuro picked up Gaara. Thank you, Gaara said as they walked away. You're welcome, brother, Kankuro chuckled. Do you need some treatment, hero? Sakura snorted. That would be nice, but Kurama says that a couple of bruises are not so bad. He doesn't intend to treat such nonsense, Naruto snorted resentfully. Don't complain, weakling, Kurama snorted. Let's go already, Sasuke smiled when Sakura finished. Otherwise, Kakashi-sensei is probably worried. Meeting with brother. Naruto's POV. A week passed after the attack. Konoha was gradually recovering. After the fight with Shukaku, Kurama spent 2 days recuperating me. He said that my body was not yet accustomed to such stress. The main thing was that the old man was fine. But the 4th cage was dead. It remained a mystery to me whether Tsunade would now be the 5th, or whether the 3rd would remain in his position. But a couple of days later, Jiraiya answered my question. Hey, kid, said Sanin, meeting me on the roof near my apartment. A perverted hermit, I rejoiced. How are you? He asked. Well, it seems okay, Datbeo. I scratched the back of my head. Naruto, in a week you and I will go on a journey to search. To search? I asked. Yes, we must find one woman, we will leave in a week at noon. In the meantime, finish all your business, he said and disappeared. So the 3rd old man decided to leave his post after all, I thought out loud. That's good, the 3rd one has really gotten old. In the upcoming war, the 5th one is more suitable for the role of Hokage, Kurama said. I nodded in agreement. The main thing now is to prepare for the journey. Besides, Itachi should show up soon. I promised Sasuke that he would talk to Itachi. Naruto, you were supposed to talk to Kakashi, didn't you forget? Kurama asked me. I sighed, yes, I promised that I would tell him everything. From the 3rd person. Uchiha sat on the monument with Sakura, they hadn't spent time together so calmly for a long time. But he couldn't calm down. Soon he would see his brother. Sasuke-kun, are you okay? The medic Nin asked worriedly. Yes, everything is fine, he nodded a little nervously. Sasuke, don't be so nervous. Your brother loves you, no matter what. And you know it. Just let him know that you understand him, that you have forgiven him and that you cherish him as much as he cherishes you, Haruno said, hugging the Uchiha from behind. Sasuke nodded. Yes, you're probably right. Naruto's POV. Kakashi-sensei had a day off, Kurama said he could sense his chakra. When we got there, he was standing near Obito and Rin's graves. Damn, here he is again, I sighed. Kakashi-sensei, you have a day off, you need to know how to use your free time properly. You don't need to keep coming to their graves. I don't think Rin would like that. How do you know Rin? Sensei asked without turning around. Remember, I promised to tell you a lot. He nodded. I sighed and walked a little further, coming to a grave with the inscription, Minato Namikaze. There was another one nearby, on it was written, Kushina Uzumaki. Kakashi-sensei, do you know who the sage of the 6 paths is? The copy ninja looked at me with confusion. I sighed again, I had a lot to tell. I placed the flowers on my parents' grave and, taking a deep breath, said. Listen carefully, I have a lot to tell. I won't repeat it. And I began the story. I told him everything. About the Chunin exam, the mark in Sasuke's departure, the death of the 3rd, about Akatsuki, up to the war. I told him that I came here together with Sakura and Sasuke. With each passing minute, Kakashi lost his composure and mask of indifference. It seemed that 100,000 emotions had changed on his face during this time. When I finished, I noticed with surprise that it was already getting dark. The first thing Kakashi asked was, is Obito alive? I sighed, I wasn't sure if I should tell him about it. But since I promised. Kakashi-sensei, Obito is not a bad person, but it will be pointless to convince or dissuade him now. And Akatsuki is very strong. We need to gain strength. We intend to change everything for the better this time. So you want to save many lives? What are your plans for the near future? Kakashi asked. First, we need to return Granny Tsunade to the village. Then, I'll go on a journey with Jiraiya. We need to get stronger, and urgently. And in the near future, Sasuke needs to talk to his brother. If everything goes well, he will be able to do us a great service in the war. Kakashi nodded. Yes, you are right. Okay, Kakashi-sensei, I think it's better for you to really rest, I said, seeing the state Hataki was in. He was obviously really shaken up. I smiled and walked towards the exit, leaving Sensei alone next to his parents' graves. I think he'll soon rethink everything. Kakashi's POV. After talking to Naruto, I was shocked. I would never have believed it so easily if he hadn't told me things that only I knew. I didn't know what to be more surprised about, Obito being alive, or Itachi's situation. I spent almost a week trying to digest all the information I had received. But it was useless. In the end, I gave up on this stupid idea and decided to just take things slow. While walking around Konoha, I was surprised to notice two strange guys in cloaks with images of red clouds. Damn, it's just like Naruto said. Kurenai and Asuma were standing in front of him, barely able to stand on their feet. Damn, I'll have to intervene. Naruto's POV. The week of preparation passed rather quickly. By lunchtime we were supposed to be on our way. Jiraiya allowed Sasuke to go with us. By the time we were ready to leave, Kurama reported that Kisame and Itachi had approached Konoha. He could sense their chakra. Plus, he could sense 3 more chakras near them. Kakashi-sensei should be able to handle it. Sasuke and I decided that the best way to talk to them would be at the hotel we were staying at. Since there would be no chance to talk to them now. So we had to leave the village quickly. Sasuke was very nervous. It was no surprise. We left Konoha. Jiraiya said that we should approach the hotel we would be staying at sometime around evening. Sasuke was mostly silent on the way, occasionally joining in our conversation. I understood that he simply didn't know what to say to his brother. Damn, I'm so nervous. I have to meet my brother soon. What will I tell him? How will I behave? Sasuke began to worry more and more. All the way he thought about what he would do when he saw his brother. But he couldn't think of anything. By evening we finally reached the hotel. Jiraiya had disappeared, as expected, citing urgent matters. This was only to our advantage. Entering the room, I sighed heavily. There was only a little bit left. Are you okay, Sasuke? I asked. Yes, everything is fine, Uchiha nodded. The guests didn't keep me waiting long. There was a knock on the door unexpectedly. Now I had to act strictly according to the plan. I needed Sasuke to talk to Itachi. And that meant I had to immobilize them. Nodding to Sasuke, I opened the door. Itachi and Kisame stood in front of me. We've been waiting for you for a long time, I grinned. Really? Kisame snorted. How do you know us? He chuckled. It's a secret, I answered in the same tone. Sasuke and I walked out into the hallway. I saw Sasuke activate his Sharingan. Itachi Uchiha, he said nervously. Sasuke, I don't have time for you, the elder Uchiha replied coldly. Fuinjutsu. Paralysis. I put the seals without wasting time. They won't be able to move for a while, you have time, I said. Sasuke nodded. Coming closer, he looked straight into his brother's eyes. And what did you do, damn boy? Kisame asked, trying to do at least something. But the seal didn't allow it. Oh, calm down. Is it that hard? I snorted. It's useless anyway. From the third person. At that time, Sasuke showed him all his memories. He thought for a long time about what words to choose, what to say. But it was all unnecessary. He decided that it would be better if Itachi saw everything himself. When the memories ended, Itachi's face acquired completely indescribable emotions. Itachi, without saying anything, activated the Sharingan, and Sasuke found himself under the power of his brother's genjutsu. We can talk here, Itachi sighed. So you know everything, Itachi said, sighing heavily. Yes, that's it, I nodded. Everything I did was wrong, Itachi said, his voice shaking. It's okay, I'm very grateful to you for everything. And I don't blame you for anything. But, Ni-san, there's no time for this, Jiraiya should be here soon. I want to ask, now that you know that I know, what are you going to do? He asked his brother. Itachi frowned. Now I'll still be spying for Akatsuki. I have an idea for you. Naruto and I discussed it. I think that you really should stay in Akatsuki for now. But as soon as there is time, I think you could catch Danzo. When Tsunade-sama becomes the 5th, if you give her evidence, she will declare you innocent, and you can return to the village. But only if she either sees the Sharingans that he is hiding, or if he confesses to it himself. Then the Hokage will have the right to remove Danzo from his position. Yes, that's a good idea. Besides, I think I can handle Danzo. And with Genjutsu, make him confess himself. But only when I find out all of Akatsuki's plans. Who knows what they'll do? There won't be a better chance of finding out what they're planning if I leave them now. Sasuke nodded in agreement. Itachi smiled. You've become very smart, brother. Okay, I can sense Jiraiya's chakra. See you later, brother, Itachi said, pointing 2 fingers at his forehead. The genjutsu has been dispelled. We're leaving, Kisame, he said to his partner. He nodded understandingly and disappeared along with Itachi. The legendary Sannin Senju Tsunade. Naruto POV. By the time Jiraiya arrived, Kisame and Itachi had already left. Sasuke, apparently exhausted from using the Sharingan, had fainted. Naruto, are you okay? Jiraiya asked me, picking up Sasuke. Yes, I'm fine, I replied. He's almost used up all his chakra. Using the Sharingan requires a lot of energy. He'll rest for 2 or 3 days and recover. I think it would be better to send him back to Konoha, the Sannin told me. He tried to put Itachi under genjutsu? Jiraiya asked me later. Yes, I nodded, glad inside that I didn't have to explain anything. The next morning, the Sannin sent a message to Konoha. Just like last time, Gai-sensei came for Sasuke. Leaving Sasuke to Gai-sensei, we said goodbye and set off. Jiraiya said that in the next town we would try to find out information about Tsunade. The way to this town was not that far. On the way I thought about what had happened and what was still ahead of us. Hey, Naruto, why are you so sad? Kurama asked me. I just thought that if Akatsuki has started to act, then I have very little time left. I need to gain strength soon, otherwise I will not be able to stop them, and save those I lost in my past life. Besides, I'm sure that we're not the only ones looking for Tsunade. Orochimaru is probably looking for her too, after all, his chakra channels were damaged. I'm sure that Tsunade is the only one who could help him. Everything will be fine, you're not alone, we'll get through this together, the 9-tailed one encouraged me. Naruto, are you thinking about something? Jiraiya asked me. I'm thinking about those 2 guys who came for me, I answered him. You have to understand something, Naruto, Jiraiya began to say. Those 2 didn't come for you, they came for what's inside of you. I don't think it matters now. What matters is that they'll come again. Which means I have to become much stronger to stand up to them. So let's find Tsunade quickly and start training. A woman with blonde hair and a rather impressive bust stood in front of the next place where an unknown amount of money would be lost. Her assistant looked in fear at the place they were about to enter. But the stakes are the highest here, she exclaimed resignedly. But her mentor was not at all embarrassed by this. The little pig just grunted soothingly, not knowing how to support her mistress. Shizune squeaked, looking at the satisfied faces of the others sitting. Apparently, they knew about her mentor's not very good reputation here too. She accidentally overheard one man calling another her mentor's nickname. Well, yes, the legendary loser. Tsunade-sama, maybe you should think about it again. Shizune sighed resignedly for the umpteenth time. But the legendary Kunoichi did not share her fears at all. Apparently, they will not see the money today, the Irionen thought, looking at her mentor. As we walked, I thought back to the first time Jiraiya told me about Senju. The legendary loser, despite being one of the strongest Kunoichi, was famous for always losing at gambling. And so, walking down the road now, I listened with a grin to what Jiraiya was telling me. After some time we reached the city. Today will be a whole day of celebration here. I think we can stay until it's over. It will be a great day off for us before the hard training starts. Then I'll take a walk and look around the city, I told him. This time, deciding not to show him my wallet, I went to look around the city. Watching happy families, I sadly remembered my father and mother. Kurama, I suddenly exclaimed. Will I see my father this time? I asked. Yes, Kyuubi replied. The seal is still on you, and it works. It just doesn't limit my powers completely. That means that when the 9th tail is released, the 4th Hokage will still appear. And you'll still have to fight me to enter Biju mode. I exhaled calmly, the thought that I would see my parents again calmed me down and gave me strength. I walked around the city, bought various sweets, played games. Deciding that it was time to find the Sannin, I headed in the direction where he was supposed to be. As expected, Jiraiya was sitting in some establishment surrounded by women. Perverted hermit, I've already rested. Maybe we should start training, I said indignantly. Sighing tiredly, I followed Jiraiya. He managed to get into a fight. And I wanted to avoid this moment so much. But he showed me the rasengan, which means we can start studying it. So, Naruto, let's get started with your training. You saw the technique I used. It's the rasengan. It's a Class A technique, and only I and the 4th Hokage can use it. The fourth Hokage invented this technique himself, and it's very powerful. I think you understand that learning this technique will be very difficult, but I think you can do it. It consists of 3 stages. The first stage is that you will have to tear this rubber ball apart. He picked up the ball and showed an example. After listening to everything Jiraiya told me, I smiled. You'll see, perverted hermit, I can do it. Then you can get started, and I'll take a little nap. I knew that this time it would have to be much faster. But this technique really wasn't easy. But I had to try to finish the first stage by this evening. Taking a deep breath, I started the first stage. I took the ball in my hands and began to slowly direct the chakra, trying to direct the chakra inside the ball in different directions. I waited. It was quite difficult to do this with one hand. But this time I wanted to learn how to create a rasengan with one hand, without using clones or the other hand. So I stubbornly continued to train. Each time my hands began to hurt more and more. By evening, when it was already getting dark, and there was only one ball left in the bag, I fell to the ground from fatigue. Damn, I forgot how hard it was. Okay, one last time, and that's enough for today, I promised myself. I took the ball in my hands and concentrated, closing my eyes. I imagined the flow of chakra, how it poured in and spread in different directions. The ball in my hand began to pulsate. After a couple more seconds, unable to withstand such pressure, the ball burst. Damn, you did it, Jiraiya said in surprise. Are you awake yet? I asked, breathing heavily. A gentle breeze blew in my face. I closed my eyes and sank to the ground. What a wonderful feeling. You were able to complete the first stage so quickly. It's mind-boggling. I just can't believe you did it so quickly. The fourth Hokage had to spend 3 years on this technique. And you completed the first stage in only half a day. I told you I could, I simply said. Tsunade threw out another stack of coins with a frown. Playing the slot machines, she managed to win countless times today. Shizune happily rejoiced, looking at the mountain of coins in the bags. Tsunade did not share her joy at all. I'm definitely lucky today. I don't like it, the woman sighed seriously. Shizune, pack your suitcase, we're leaving this city. The woman declared. What? But why? Shizune was indignant. Let's at least look at the tower. They say it's just incredible, Shizune said. We'll see on the way, Sanin snapped. Tsunade usually always lost, and if there were moments when she unexpectedly won something, it meant only one thing. Something bad was about to happen. And the woman was convinced of this quite quickly. Walking down the street, they briefly noticed the huge top of a tall building. Quite a famous place in this city. Tsunade had a bad feeling. And it was not deceiving her. A terrible noise and rumble was heard. The top of the building collapsed. After the dust settled, rather familiar figures appeared in front of Tsunade and Shizune. Orochimaru, Tsunade said angrily. Long time no see, Tsunade, the snake grinned. The next morning I woke up in my room. Apparently I had overexerted myself trying to finish the first stage so quickly. My hands were no longer shaking. I couldn't master the next second stage so quickly. Despite my theoretical knowledge, I spent 2 days trying to master it. Meanwhile, Jiraiya was finally able to find information about Tsunade. The next morning we went looking for her. A man was running down a narrow street in panic. What happened? Jiraiya asked, stopping him. There's a huge snake there, you better get out of here. I understood from the sullen expression on the hermit's face. He is here after all. Orochimaru. Don't get worked up. Play according to the scenario you're already familiar with, Kurama told me. I sighed heavily and nodded. Author's POV. Naruto walked along the street, which was simply filled with bars and various casinos. He really did not understand such a strange craving for games of Tsunade's granny. Finally entering one of the establishments, they saw women sitting at a table. Jiraiya frowned, as if looking closely. When he finally recognized the woman sitting, he exclaimed. Tsunade. Jiraiya, Tsunade said in response. The woman looked at the man sullenly, her cheeks slightly red from the alcohol she had drunk. Where did you come from? The woman muttered discontentedly. Are you talking about Orochimaru? The man asked. Tsunade turned away. And what did he want from you? The Sanin asked. Nothing, we just talked and parted ways, said the woman. So what did you want from me? She asked. I'll be brief, Tsunade. Due to the current circumstances and the incident with the third Hokage, the council has decided that it is time to appoint a new Hokage of the Leaf Village. The woman's eyes widened in surprise. Naruto watched as she was shocked. But Senju quickly pulled herself together. It's impossible, she replied. Shizune looked at Tsunade in horror. Was she really going to accept Orochimaru's offer? Naruto realized he had to start the show. He feigned genuine bewilderment and indignation. Hokage. Who? This woman. You didn't say that we are looking for her so that she can become the fifth. Naruto was indignant. Calm down, Naruto. You don't understand. Tsunade is the best for this position. The third Hokage himself personally proposed her candidacy. Tsunade was of great help during the war. She is the one who has incredible skills as an Irionin and a fighter. In addition, she is the granddaughter of the first Hokage. Her skills and pedigree make her the best candidate for the post of the fifth Hokage. It is unlikely that a child like you will be able to understand this, Jiraiya explained. Uzumaki, feigning indignation, frowned with displeasure and fell silent. Ha, Jiraiya, who is this snotty kid? He's not very smart. Tsunade chuckled. This is Naruto Uzumaki, Jiraiya said, watching his former teammate's obvious surprise. He's my student. He's nothing like your former student, an ill-mannered and ignorant child, the woman snorted. Naruto chuckled internally. Who's the kid here anyway? Well, what can you do? There are only a few like the fourth. Minato was not deprived of looks, intelligence, or abilities, just like his teacher, Jiraiya said. How modest we are, Kurama snorted inside. But it didn't help him at all, Tsunade chuckled. He died, sacrificing his life for the village. And Sarutobi, that stupid old man, was ready to give his life for the village, not thinking at all that he was no longer at that age. He was just incredibly lucky to be alive. Old fool. Yes, Tsunade, you have clearly changed. The man frowned. What can I do? I'm actually much older than I look. And life teaches us cruel lessons. Naruto started to get really angry, he just couldn't stand it. For some reason, these words hurt him, making him irritated. How can you say such a thing? Jumping up, he wanted to pounce on Tsunade, but a hand grabbed him by the collar from behind. Yes, he had heard it before. Yes, he knew she had her reasons for saying that. But still, he would make her regret it. And the woman continued. And about Hokage. Playing Hokage is a stupid game. Only a fool would want to do that. Naruto snapped. How dare you say such things? The third Hokage, a hero who was ready to die for the village, just like the fourth, who gave his life for the prosperity of Konoha. I don't care that you're a woman. I'll make you answer for your words. You're asking for it, boy. The woman said, abruptly putting her foot on the table and leaning her elbows. Well, at least you're not a coward. Maybe we should go outside. She chuckled. Jiraiya and Shizune, who were sitting at the table, just sighed heavily. A light breeze blew on their faces. Naruto stood confidently, looking at the woman in front of him. One finger. I'll put you down with one finger, said the woman. Naruto smiled. Oh yes, he knew perfectly well that he didn't have a chance against her now. But his task was completely different. He would show her what the title of Hokage meant to him. He would show her that people like her fiancé and brother were still alive. He confidently rushed at the woman. He wouldn't win, but he had to stand on his feet. Dodging the kunai he threw, she was about to put the boy down, but Naruto, using the replacement technique, moved behind the woman and used the wind technique. Tsunade, not expecting this, flew back a little, but remained standing. You're not as hopeless as you seem, Tsunade chuckled. But you're still too inexperienced, she snorted. Naruto didn't notice how the woman standing in front of him ended up behind him. When he turned around, he felt a pretty powerful flick and flew back a decent distance. Damn, and yet I never ceased to be amazed at her strength, Uzumaki thought, painfully rubbing his forehead and staggering. Before you pass out, I want to ask you, why are you so protective of the Hokage? The woman asked. Naruto smiled and looked at the woman with a confident look. Because, unlike you, becoming Hokage is my dream. Tsunade turned pale. Those words, Shizune, who was standing a little further away, looked at Naruto in shock. This boy, she thought. And I will definitely become one, said Uzumaki. Tsunade, hearing Naruto's words, was at a loss. Uzumaki knew that it was useless to attack now. But he had no choice. He created a half-finished rasengan and rushed at Tsunade. Clearly surprised by this, Tsunade immediately came to her senses and with one movement of her hand split the ground, causing Naruto to fall and the rasengan to dissipate. Tsunade looked at Naruto with a mocking expression. Then, turning her gaze to Jiraiya, she said. Jiraiya, you're a fool. Why are you teaching a boy the rasengan jutsu? Only you and the fourth Hokage know this jutsu. He's my student, of course I teach him, Jiraiya shrugged. You're giving him stupid hopes. There's no way he'll be able to learn that technique. That's why he has such stupid dreams about becoming Hokage. I'll show you yet. I'll learn this technique in 3 days. Tsunade bared her teeth. You have to answer for your words, boy, better not throw around such words. I always keep my word, Naruto stated confidently. Okay, I'll give you a week. If you master this technique during that time, then I'll give you my necklace, Tsunade said. Naruto smiled. He had already received this necklace once, he would receive it this time too. It's coming, you'll see, it will be mine. Tsunade-sama, why take such a risk? Shizune exclaimed. What risk is there? Sannin snorted in response. And Naruto looked at the back of the future fifth and smiled in anticipation. Fifth Hokage Senju Tsunade. The next evening after the argument with the Sannin, Shizune came to me. As expected, I heard a story about a very important part of her life and the sad story of the cursed pendant. But when Shizune made excuses, I answered that I would still win the argument. I spent the remaining week learning the rasengan to the end and using it without the help of a clone. Despite the fact that all this had happened before, the desire to kill Kabuto forced me to devote myself to training to the fullest. After some time had passed, when Granny Tsunade ran off to Orochimaru, Shizune told us what was going on, and we hurried to catch up with her. Standing in the middle of a ruined street and broken walls, I couldn't help but chuckle. For some reason, Sakura-chan immediately came to mind. After all, their temperaments are too similar. It looks like someone ruined our Tsunade's mood, Jiraiya said. So she refused Orochimaru, Shizune sighed with relief. As we approached the battlefield, which looked no different from a recently destroyed street, we managed to prevent Kabuto's attack, who had already swung his kunai. Uzumaki Naruto, Orochimaru hissed angrily. I'm surprised you know each other, Jiraiya said. We managed to meet you at the exam, I smiled. How are your hands, Orochimaru-sama? I asked, feigning a sincere smile. Ah, Kabuto-san, hello to you too. So you knew there was something wrong with me from the start, Kabuto chuckled. You're not as stupid as they say. You're not as smart as you seem, I answered him. However, we were not allowed to talk. The enraged Tsunade was eager to grind poor Kabuto into dust. But her fear of blood let her down. It would be stupid to pretend to be completely weak, since Jiraiya and Orochimaru knew that it was not so. But I had to impress Tsunade and not rush into battle right away, waiting for the right moment. So I had to deal with a snake, which in fact did not pose a huge threat to me. The reptile that managed to swallow me and spit me out was killed by me after some time. I didn't interfere in the battle until the moment came when Shizune was unconscious and Kabuto was about to finish Tsunade off. I arrived just in time and took the blow. The damn idiot hit me so hard that my forehead started bleeding and I was thrown to the floor. I didn't have to pretend to be so wounded and get up right away, but I still had to impress Granny Tsunade. You play well, Kurama commented, but I didn't listen to him. After I got a good kicking, I started to act like a hero struggling to get back on his feet. From Tsunade's expression and her screams, I realized that I was doing really well. Finally standing up, I looked at Kabuto confidently. He was starting to really annoy me with his chatter. No, seriously, did he sign up to be my psychologist? Anger and rage were seething inside me. His words about everything I do being a waste of time and a child's stupid dreams made me want to punch him more and more. Tsunade was screaming something desperately, but I wanted to show her that people like her brother and fiancé still exist. Grandma Tsunade, get ready, I'm going to get that damn pendant. You'll see, I said. Breathing heavily and not taking my eyes off Kabuto, I began to gather chakra in my hand. The damn snake servant did not have time to react in time, still saying something about my naivety. A second, and Kabuto flies a decent distance from the received rasengan. I won the bet, I said with a smile, swaying slightly, and pretended to spit out blood. Luckily, Kabuto didn't have time to hit his heart, but I still pretended to fall unconscious. Tsunade loomed over Naruto. Tears were dripping onto the genin's shirt. Senju came to her senses for the first time in a long time. This boy's dream was too similar to the dreams of the people dear to her. I told you I would win, Naruto. Senju heard his voice. The boy's small hand grabbed the pendant, then dropped sharply. Tsunade checked her pulse, realizing that it was just chakra depletion, and breathed a sigh of relief. Becoming Hokage is your dream, right, Naruto? I heard Tsunade's voice, which was filled with motherly tenderness. Yo, Kurama, how do you like me? I smiled, approaching the familiar shaggy muzzle. After I supposedly passed out, I decided to visit Kyubi. The fox looked at me with a grin. Just a great performance, you're a natural actor, Uzumaki, Kyubi grins. In general, I spent the rest of the time of the Battle of the Three Sannin talking with Kurama and sleeping, during which I was almost killed by Orochimaru, but Tsunade protected me, thereby overcoming her fear of blood. As a result, Tsunade accepted the post of the 5th Hokage. The terribly angry Orochimaru went home with Kabuto to lick his wounds, and for my efforts and bravery, Tsunade rewarded me with a kiss on the forehead. With a sense of accomplishment, Jiraiya, the new Hokage, and I, along with Shizune, headed back to Konoha 3 days later. We reached the village 3 weeks later. Jiraiya left the next day, citing extreme busyness. Tsunade had a meeting with the elders and a pile of unsorted documents to deal with. That evening after returning, I was sitting on the Hokage monument, waiting for Sasuke and Sakura. Dobi, you're back, and how did it go? Uchiha asked immediately upon meeting. I rolled my eyes. Uchiha, aren't you happy to see me? You could have at least hugged me for decency's sake. Everything went as expected, but the snake, I think, was really angry. I can say that we'll be training like crazy for the rest of our time, I said. That's obvious, Uchiha chuckled. What's new with you? I asked Sasuke. Well, we discussed the whole situation with Kakashi and decided that we wouldn't deviate too much from the upcoming events, dealing with problems as they arise, Sakura, who was a little late, answered. And he also put together a hellish training regimen for us, Sakura smiled. Time passed. We trained like hell. Old Man 3 officially retired, handing over his post to the 5th and finally giving us the title of Chunin. Everything was going rather quietly, but I knew that soon this silence would end. The time of my journey with Jiraiya was approaching. A warm farewell evening. It was a warm evening in Konohagakure, when the sun was beginning to disappear behind the horizon, and a rather noisy group of people had gathered in one of Konoha's establishments. The evening was just beginning. Uzumaki and his friends gathered together before he was sent off to a long training session with Jiraiya. Uzumaki thought long and hard about how to say goodbye to everyone before leaving with the Sannin, and eventually decided to call everyone and sit together in a friendly manner while eating barbecue. Team 7, 8, 10 and Team Guy sat at one table, and their senseis sat at the next table. Don't let me down, Uzumaki. Kiba said, laughing happily and eating barbecue. You don't have to worry about that, Naruto replied with a cheerful smile. I hope you gain more brains, Dobi, Sasuke snorted. Shikamaru and Sakura nodded, agreeing with the Uchiha. Try not to get into trouble, Naruto, Nara said in a casual tone. When did I ever get into trouble? Naruto asked loudly and indignantly. You do this all the time, they all said, all too unanimously. Uzumaki snorted. Look at the synchronous response. A warm, friendly atmosphere permeated the establishment. Naruto looked at it with a smile. He thought that it was truly incredible. They were all sitting together now, and you couldn't even tell that in the future they would be touched by war, loss, and a sea of spilled blood. The Jinchuriki clenched his fist. He promised himself that he would be able to protect his loved ones and become stronger. Kakashi, you're great, you have a great team, Kurenai smiled, looking at her friend. Obito and Rin would be proud of you. Hitaki nodded. These three were truly special, able to bring together people who were completely different and who never seemed to get along. The copy ninja was truly proud of them. He looked at the noisy table with a smirk. Ino and Sakura were discussing something. Choji was trying to talk to Shikamaru and eat at the same time. Lee and Naruto were arguing over which of their senseis was better, and Sasuke and Neji were looking at the crowd like they were a bunch of idiots. Only Hinata seemed very distant next to them. She looked at Naruto and thought about how long she wouldn't see him for. She was sad, but at the same time she wanted Naruto to become even stronger after he returned. Uzumaki was special to everyone in his own way. She understood that. She always admired his aspirations and tenacity. Hyuga knew that Naruto was truly an incredible shinobi. Suddenly, Uzumaki seemed to realize that he was being watched and turned around. Hinata blushed deeply, but Naruto didn't say anything, he just smiled warmly at her. Yes, I will try too, Hinata said to herself. Meanwhile, it was also getting hot at the next table. Kakashi, I assure you that I can drink much more than you and not get drunk, Guy said loudly. Yes, of course, Hitaki muttered monotonously, quietly pouring another glass of sake into a flower pot standing nearby. Don't drink too much, Asuma said caringly, looking at Kurenai. I'm resistant to alcohol, the woman chuckled. In the far corner sat two Sannin, drinking sake and watching the noise that was happening at the tables. Tsunade was already a little drunk, and a light blush decorated her cheeks. Look after the boy, he has a strange talent for uniting people, she said. Don't worry, you'll see, he'll achieve a lot, Sanin chuckled. The noise in the establishment did not subside for a long time. Only closer to midnight did the noise stop. Wow, I almost won, Kakashi. Guy, completely drunk, leaned on the copy ninja. Yeah, sure, now let's go home, Hitaki sighed resignedly, stopping for a second and looking at Naruto. Good luck, you try your best, he said. Don't worry, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto nodded. Uzumaki said goodbye to everyone until only Sakura and Sasuke remained. Well, Dobi, don't be an idiot and come back when you become a strong enough shinobi. You don't fall behind either, Tem, Naruto replied. Sakura just hugged him and said, get a good night's sleep today. After saying goodbye to his friends, Naruto headed towards his apartment. Naruto-kun, a familiar voice called out to him. Hinata-chan, Uzumaki said happily, turning around. He hadn't been able to talk to her the whole evening and was very worried about it. I just wanted to wish you good luck, Hinata said nervously, embarrassed and not daring to look at him. Uzumaki smiled happily and in a fit of joy suddenly hugged the poor Hyuga. Thank you, wait for me, and I will definitely return very strong. Without waiting for her answer, Uzumaki said goodbye and ran away. He was afraid that if he stayed a minute longer, Hinata would faint. He had to leave before she realized what had happened. You're a bastard, you can't do it so suddenly, Kurama shook his head disapprovingly. I just couldn't help myself, Uzumaki replied resignedly. The boy had long since disappeared, and only Hinata stood in the middle of the alley, not understanding anything. The evening was truly strange. The next morning, before the sun had risen, Uzumaki stood outside the gates of Konoha, looking back at the village. It would be a long time before he returned here again. Commentary on warm farewell evening. From the beta. Many thanks to the readers for marking errors via PB. I tried to fix everything. Thank you all and sorry it took so long. 3 years later. Hot summer weather. Naruto was meditating on a high sharp peak, sitting on a board, trying to keep his balance and not fall. Jiraiya was sitting opposite him, relaxed, monitoring the progress of Uzumaki's training. To his surprise, the senjutsu training was going quite well. Uzumaki really was a genius. The Toad Sanin expected that Naruto would have a lot of problems with his first training in learning senjutsu, but this was not the case. To tell the truth, Jiraiya was not going to teach him this so soon, but when Uzumaki saw Jiraiya's hermit mode during training, he enthusiastically asked to teach him. Now he is truly surprised and happy. Naruto almost did not fall, maintaining his balance, barely visible orange circles began to appear around his eyes. Jiraiya grinned contentedly. A little more and his student will completely master senjutsu. Naruto was not at all pleased with his current progress. He expected that since he knew and had already mastered the hermit mode, he would succeed on the first try this time, but that was not the case. Put your lip down, boy, Kurama answered him when he was mentally indignant. The poor Jinchuriki could only sigh in resignation. Good, very good, Fukasaku said to himself. Jiraiya-chan, this boy is even more talented than you are at this age, he said, looking at Naruto. That's really true, said the old hermit, not at all upset. After a hard day of training, Uzumaki looked at the porridge with various bugs with disgust and sighed a little resignedly. The only thing he really missed was ramen from Ichiraku. With a huge noise, the ground split into several pieces under Sakura's foot. Tsunade looked at the place where she had just stood with a satisfied grin. Senju was sincerely pleased with her student. Perfect chakra control, unconditional talent for medical techniques, the ability to dodge and avoid blows. Sakura reminded her of her younger self. After the exchange of blows between Tsunade and Sakura, the training ground was already completely destroyed, and Sasuke, who was standing on a tree, fell from the shaking of the ground. He just wanted to watch, but in the end, he almost got 2 kunoichi from a regular training session. Okay, Sakura, you're doing well, the 5th Hokage said with satisfaction. After the training ended, only Sakura and Sasuke remained at the training ground. I hope his training is going well too, Haruno sighed, smiling and looking into the distance. I don't think there's any reason to worry, it's Naruto, Sasuke said matter-of-factly. Time passed quickly, 3 years flew by unnoticed. In the Hokage's residence, a guy stood with his arms crossed over his chest and looking at the Hokage with displeasure. His face was scratched by a recently caught cat. Konohamaru, Iruka said through clenched teeth. Senju, looking at the boy, involuntarily remembered the fair-haired youth. Konohamaru, From now on you will only be carrying out D-rank missions, the woman said for the umpteenth time. These missions are useless. To become the 7th Hokage, I must undertake much more difficult missions. I'm just wasting my time on useless things. The genin stated categorically. The 7th. Then who is the 6th? Asked the 5th. Brother Naruto will be the 6th. The younger Sarutobi confidently declared. Instead of the 7th Hokage, he looks more like the 2nd Naruto, Iruka said tiredly, but there was a warm note in his voice. It's about time they came back, the kunoichi said, looking out the window. In the distance, the familiar gates of Konoha could be seen. Uzumaki looked at his beloved village with pleasure, and his mouth spread into a smile. Although 3 years had actually passed, time on Mount Mayamboku passed differently. Therefore, now, looking at the village, he realized how much time had passed. I'm home, Naruto shouted, looking at Konoha from a high pole. Naruto, you're back. A familiar voice was heard. Uzumaki looked down and saw Sakura and Konohamaru with their team. Sakura, Uzumaki jumped down and looked at Haruno. A wave of nostalgia came over him. So, have I changed? Haruno asked, posing for the guy. Why yes, you've become even more beautiful, the guy said a little tensely, now he clearly understood the girl's hint. Brother Naruto, look, Uzumaki turned around and saw that instead of Konohamaru there was a beautiful girl. Konohamaru, I'm already grown up, so don't use that technique in front of me next time, Uzumaki said, looking sideways at Sakura. Even Konohamaru's disappointed voice didn't make him repeat his previous mistake. I don't believe it, the fox snorted subconsciously. Haruno chuckled with satisfaction. You've grown up a lot, Dobi, although you're still shorter than me, a familiar voice, with a smile seeping through it, was heard from behind. I've become stronger, Uzumaki said, ignoring his friend's mockery. Okay, I guess we need to go to Tsunade, Jiraiya said, looking at the noisy trio. Well, did you manage to achieve anything? Senju asked. Of course, you think we would have returned without any results? Jiraiya snorted. Well, okay, then we'll check how your training went after the test, Senju said with a smirk. Uzumaki smiled to himself, he knew perfectly well what they were talking about. Late in the evening, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura were sitting at Ichiraku Ramen. They hadn't spent such a friendly time together for a long time. Kakashi, as expected, had disappeared after receiving Jiraiya's book. But Naruto met Shikamaru and Tamari. These two, it seems, still didn't understand what they were feeling, or maybe it was supposed to happen later. He hadn't met Hinata and the others yet. He wanted to see the shy Hyuga more than anything, but he mentally persuaded himself, saying that he would see her after saving Gaara. He had been worried about this all the time lately. Sasuke patted Naruto on the shoulder in a friendly manner, he knew very well what was gnawing at the Jinchuriki. I have to make it before Shukaku is extracted this time, he said seriously. Sakura nodded in agreement, she really wanted to save Chiyo-ba-sama. I think we should go to bed early today, we have training with Sensei tomorrow at dawn, Sasuke said, thinking about something. Yes, you're right, we need to rest, Uzumaki sighed tiredly. Commentary on 3 years later. Ta-da-da-damn, and here is the continuation. At first I wanted to make a continuation as a separate fanfic, but then I changed my mind. From the beta. I'm glad to be back at this work. I hope you, readers, still remember this fanfic. The author and I will try for you smiley face, good luck to everyone. And if anything, point out mistakes in the PB. I'll try to fix everything. Training fight with Kakashi. Early morning in Konoha. Team 7 stood on a familiar training ground and looked at their sensei with rather mixed feelings. The place where they had first become a team, the place where after their revival the not-so-lucky sensei had tested all the ingenuity of his dear team. Even then he had realized how unusual these kids were. And now, when he had to test his team again, he was extremely cautious. He did not dare underestimate this team of devils. Hitaki looked at the three with suspicion and with the same skepticism looked around him. After all, who the hell knew what they could come up with? Sasuke grinned, seeing his sensei's wary attitude. I think, Kakashi began to speak after a little while and looking at Naruto. I think it's time to start. You have time until sunset. Let's start. After Kakashi's words, Team 7 disappeared from view. Hitaki, sighing heavily, opened a blood-red eye with an unusual pattern. He would definitely need the Sharingan. In the shade of the trees, Jiraiya, Tsunade and Shizune watched the upcoming fight with anticipation. This will definitely be interesting, the fifth one said with a grin. Meanwhile, in the thicket, Carefully hiding all their chakra, the three were in full combat readiness. No matter what, they did not dare to treat their sensei with disdain. After all, this was Kakashi Hatake. The boys looked at each other and silently nodded, then jumped out of their hiding place. Sasuke attacked Hatake, aiming his foot at his head, but Kakashi ducked, deftly avoiding the blow and meeting his blow with his right foot. It was not the first time they had sparred. The fight had just begun, and Hatake already had to fight off Sasuke's blows and Naruto, who had appeared out of nowhere. Kicks and punches and the sounds of kunai could be heard on the training ground. The streams of blows did not stop. Suddenly, Hatake felt danger from behind. He had to fight off Sasuke and Naruto's blows, and from behind, a rather dangerous fist of a pink-haired kunoichi was rushing at him with all its might. Damn you, Hatake went off with a substitution technique. Haruno's blow split the ground. Hatake was breathing heavily as he hid in the forest. He knew it would be hard, of course. But these kids were clearly making him sweat. Kakashi jumped to the side, out of breath. Sakura's kick split the tree into splinters. Sensei, you need to be more careful. A bright smile appeared on the kunoichi's face. Oh, sensei, you've clearly aged, Naruto said disapprovingly, shaking his head. I'm very disappointed, sensei, Sasuke supported with a grin. The Junin's left eye twitched involuntarily. You shouldn't underestimate me. I think I should remind you that I'm not a Konoha copy ninja for nothing. These words were clearly true. Only when the sun began to gradually set, the quiet ringing of bells could be heard on the training ground. Hatake, breathing heavily and leaning against a tree, looked at the three smiling students. The training ground was almost completely destroyed. The ground was completely split, traces of scorched trees and puddles from fire and water techniques were visible. Hatake was completely exhausted, which was not the case with his opponents. You've surpassed me after all, he said barely audibly. There was no disappointment or displeasure in his voice. On the contrary, he was clearly proud of them. Because of their experience in their past life, they were clearly stronger than him now. He simply had nothing more to teach them. Although, if you think about it, he hadn't taught them anything. A disappointed sigh was heard. Straightening his back with difficulty, Hatake smiled. I clearly overdid it today. Kakashi-sensei, don't be upset, we are very grateful to you, Haruno said, clearly understanding the sensei's inner torment. Sensei nodded slightly embarrassedly. Excellent. I am very pleased. From now on, the three of you will be carrying out various missions with Kakashi. You are no longer his students. You are full-fledged shinobi of Konoha. Starting tomorrow, I will give you a mission, so be ready. Senju said enthusiastically. Jiraiya, looking at the students, clicked his tongue and shook his head, smiling. They clearly didn't show everything they can do. Yeah, I think I'm going to have a hard time keeping up, Hatake sighed heavily. He relaxed and lay down on the ground, reaching into his back pocket to pull out his favorite book. He would finally be able to finish it. Cage Rescue Mission. After a week of long waiting, it finally happened. They received a mission to rescue the Cage. Uzumaki felt like he was on pins and needles all week. There were no available shinobi left in the village, so Tsunade had no choice but to give this mission to Naruto. Although she was worried, she still thought that Uzumaki was better suited for this mission than anyone else. After all, as a Jinchuriki, he was much closer to Gaara. I'm counting on you, the fifth one said in a serious tone. She was very worried, because Akatsuki is a dangerous organization after all. Don't worry, we'll be extremely careful, Hatake nodded, picking up the scroll with the mission details. When Team 7 left the residence, they immediately headed home to collect the things they had prepared long ago. At the gates of Konoha, Kakashi looked at the students with a cold gaze before giving instructions. Sakura and I will go to the Sand Village to save Kankuro, and you go straight to the Akatsuki hideout. After we finish in the Sand Village, we will head your way straight away. If you finish earlier, then head straight to us. Also, I beg you, Naruto, do not be impulsive. I know that you really want to help Gaara. But I hope that you understand, you need to remain calm. Don't worry, Kakashi-sensei, I'm completely fine, Naruto smiled. Hatake looked at Uzumaki with a distrustful look once more before waving his hand as a sign that the mission was about to begin. Uchiha and Naruto nodded in response and ran off into the thicket of the forest, in the opposite direction from them. Sakura and Kakashi, casting one last glance at the boys' backs, set off towards the Sand Village. The journey to Sunagakure wasn't that long. They should have arrived within 3 days. When Sakura and Hatake were already in the forest, they saw Tamari, who was also heading to the village. Tamari-san, Haruno called out to the girl. The dog stopped and turned around, looking at the two Konoha shinobi in surprise. When Sakura told her everything that had happened, Tamari felt a strong emotion. Maybe it would be better if I followed them? Tamari asked worriedly. Don't worry, I'm sure Naruto and Sasuke will handle it. It would be better for us to hurry to the sand village and find out what happened in detail, Haruno replied. Tamari, who still felt very nervous, nodded reluctantly. 3 days later, they finally reached Sunagaku. Kankuro was injured. Tamari cried out loudly, her heart clenching painfully. Don't worry, I'm sure I can help, Haruno smiled. Then please follow me, the man who met them said to them. When they approached the operating room, the expected situation occurred. Chiyoba-sama, shouting, defend yourself, pounced on poor Hitaki. Haruno blocked the old woman's sudden attack with her hand and smiled sheepishly. You must have made a mistake, she said. Sister, this is not White Fang, have you forgotten that he is already dead? The old man standing next to her pulled up the impulsive woman. Dead? Chiyoba asked, a little taken aback, before laughing loudly and saying she was joking. Haruno was distracted by a painful groan. Kankuro, Tamari exclaimed in fear and ran up to her brother. Please prepare for me what I will ask for now. Do everything as quickly as possible. I will begin the operation. Haruno began to give instructions. Kakashi looked at Chiyo who was glaring at him and said tiredly. I am his son. It's no wonder you look so much like him, the old woman replied. Meanwhile, in the operating room, Sakura was already completely different. Kakashi watched the student's quick and confident movements, feeling proud. Chiyoba-sama was also quite surprised. She looks a lot like the slug princess, she suddenly voiced her thoughts out loud. It's probably because she's her student, Hitaki replied with a smile. After a few hours, the operation came to an end. I've extracted most of the poison. All that's left is to give him the antidote. Haruno took a glass flask out of her bag. Did you already have an antidote? The Irionin standing nearby asked in surprise. You could say that I had the opportunity to study this poison, Haruno answered vaguely. Kakashi-san, someone suddenly called out to Hitaki. The man turned around and saw a shinobi standing in front of him with a white cloth covering half of his face. Shouldn't there be two more with you? The Sunagaku shinobi asked, seeing only Haruno and Kakashi. Yes, that's right, it's just that we've already determined the location of their base, so Naruto and Sasuke have already headed there. Do you know where Gaara is? The man asked, dumbfounded. Yes, Hitaki nodded in response. We need to send someone else there, the shinobi said fussily. Don't worry, as soon as Haruno finishes with the antidote, we'll go to them, Hitaki answered calmly. Chiyoba, who was sitting next to her, felt strange. After all, she wasn't particularly fond of asking for help from others. Sasuke and Naruto were making their way to the Akatsuki hideout at a fast pace. Naruto felt a lot of emotional pressure, but he tried his best to remain calm. When they were almost there, they were suddenly met by a familiar figure. We haven't seen each other for a long time, you've grown up. Sasuke felt a thrill and warmth as he looked at his older brother's rather intimidating figure with a smile. Don't worry, your friend is still alive. The technique for extracting the tail beast is quite difficult. You made it just in time. Since you arrived earlier than we expected, the technique had to be interrupted. Many have already left. Sasori and Deidara are waiting for you at the base, Itachi explained the general situation. That's good. I don't think we could handle all of the Akatsuki members at once right now, Naruto sighed in relief. They are not so stupid as to appear before you now. Besides, they really underestimate you and are counting on the fact that they will be able to catch another Jinchuriki today, the elder Uchiha replied. Sasuke snorted in irritation at this statement. Idiots. Okay, you should hurry up. See you next time, OT2, Itachi smiled warmly and poked 2 fingers into the boy's forehead. I'll wait, Sasuke nodded with a smile. After talking with Itachi, they went straight to the shelter. A couple of hours later, they were already near the cave. Deidara was sitting on top of a white clay bird, and Sasori was, as expected, inside Haruki. The dark-haired man had heard the story from Sakura many times about how epically she had won the fight with Sasori. So he knew roughly what to expect from this guy. You've finally come. I must say that you've ruined all our plans, Sasori said irritably. Let's not waste time, Sasori-sama. I must show them the full essence of my art. Deidara said in anticipation, the mouth on his right hand licking. What art? Your explosion is just child's play. The real art is in my dolls. Sasori disagreed. Naruto had no desire to hear their stupid reasoning about art. He didn't agree with any of their conclusions anyway. It would be better for you to just give us the cage, Sasuke replied, also irritated. Oh, you want to save the cage? Then you'll have to take him from me first. Deidara grinned before picking up Gaara and flying out of the cave. Sasuke, deal with Sasori, and I'll go after Gaara, Naruto said to his friend, mentally cursing the long-haired explosion lover. Yeah, be careful, Uchiha replied, activating his Sharingan. Although he had already injected the antidote before entering, Uchiha still had to be extremely careful. Well, boy, let's play, Sasori chuckled and without warning began to attack with a multitude of poisoned needles. Stupid tricks, Sasuke said coldly, dodging each and every one of them. With the Sharingan, such an attack was child's play for him. He saw each needle in slow motion, dodging with ease, as if he were gliding. Sasuke knew he had to avoid the tail strikes and break through Haruki's defense. Fire attacks would be useless. The Uchiha created a Chidori and was at Haruki's side in one jump, while still managing to dodge the tail strikes. Not wanting to waste much time, he broke through the doll's defense with a lightning attack. The armor shattered into pieces, and at that moment Sasori finally showed up. I didn't expect you to make me play more seriously, Sasori said discontentedly, showing two dolls. You think you're really my opponent? Uchiha thought it was going on too long. He dodged all the attacks and in one jump he was next to Sasori, creating a Chidori and piercing his vulnerable spot. The fight was almost over. Come on, catch me, Deidara said, trying to get on his pursuer's nerves. He threw bombs at Naruto, trying to stay at a sufficiently large distance from him. Do you take me for an idiot? Uzumaki asked him questioningly. The Jinchuriki, gathering the tailed beast's chakra, jumped onto the bird, sending it flying down with a powerful kick. Uzumaki, not paying attention to anything else, grabbed the unconscious Gaara with his chakra hand and slowly turned towards the enemy that was irritating him. You better not come any closer, Deidara said loudly, throwing another bomb towards Uzumaki. It's time to finish with you, Naruto drawled impatiently. He gathered a large amount of chakra, creating a huge rasengan, and sent it at Deidara. No, Deidara wanted to avoid the attack, but he didn't have time. A huge stream of chakra covered him, throwing him back several meters. Deidara coughed up blood heavily before finally closing his eyes. Did I really get rid of him? Naruto said tiredly. He looked back and saw Uchiha walking towards him. Is Gaara okay? Sasuke asked tensely. Naruto laid his unconscious friend on the ground before checking on his condition. He's fine, but he's lost a lot of chakra. He'll rest for a day or two and then he'll recover, Kurama reassured them. Then let's go to Sunagaku. We'll probably meet Kakashi and Sakura on the way, Naruto nodded. Over the course of 3 days, Gaara gradually felt better. When they were halfway to the sand village, they saw familiar silhouettes. Sasuke, Naruto, are you okay? Haruno exclaimed happily. How did it go? Is the cage okay? Hitaki asked worriedly. Everything is fine, but he still hasn't come to his senses, Naruto said, slightly worried. Put it here, I'll fly it, Haruno said seriously. Sakura checked the Sandman for any injuries, but everything was fine. The only thing was that he was very exhausted. Haruno gathered chakra and began to heal. Little by little, Sobaku's pale expression improved. An hour later, Gaara finally opened his eyes. The Jinchuriki blinked in surprise when his friend's bright smile appeared before him. Naruto, he asked in surprise. Are you finally awake? Uzumaki said happily, ignoring his surprise. A heavy stone seemed to have disappeared from his heart, leaving a great sense of satisfaction. Gaara was still looking around stupidly. Seeing the shinobi from Konoha, he was quite surprised. What happened? The Jinchuriki wondered. What happened? He asked when Naruto stopped hugging him. We'll tell you everything on the way. Right now it's best to take you back, Kage-sama, Hitaki interrupted them. I think we really need to hurry, Uchiha nodded. 2 days later, Team Kakashi returned the cage safely back to Sunagaku. Poor Gaara was surprised by how joyfully he was greeted. The cries of joy and tears in the eyes of the villagers were truly an incredible surprise to him. Gaara once again realized that thanks to Naruto, he felt a sense of care that was foreign to him before. Thank you, shinobi from Konoha, the man who greeted them at first smiled. I am incredibly grateful to you all, Tamari smiled. Indeed, we are greatly indebted to you, Kankuro agreed. We were happy to help, Hitaki answered them. Haruno looked at Chiyoba-sama and said, I was very glad to meet you. Girl, you are very talented, and you, Naruto-kun. I want to express my gratitude for saving the cage. And for bringing me Sasori, the old woman smiled. Naruto smirked. Taking Sasori back and giving his body to Chiyoba was a spontaneous thought. Naruto thought that even if he died, the old lady would still be happy about it. Okay, we have to go, Hatake finally said. See you later, Naruto, and thank you, Gaara, who had been silent the entire time, said. He extended a clenched fist and smiled. In the end, this gesture was much better than all the words of gratitude. Yes, Gaara, see you, Uzumaki nodded, hitting him back in a friendly manner. This moment was truly happy. Naruto finally began to feel like he was slowly changing his destined fate. This feeling was truly wonderful. Snake Sanin's shelter. Commentary on Snake Sanin's shelter. Sorry for the mistakes. Beta will check soon. From the beta. Hi everyone. I checked the chapter, sorry for the delay. After they returned to Konoha, the boys immediately went to the residence to hand in their mission report. The whole way, they discussed what to do with Orochimaru and Kabuto. I think we should visit their lair. We can't wait any longer. If we don't get rid of Kabuto and Orochimaru now, the problems will only increase. I don't want the Fourth World War to happen again, Naruto frowned at his comrades. I think Naruto is right, but first you need to get Tsunade-sama's permission, Kakashi answered thoughtfully. No, are you crazy? Visit Orochimaru's lair. Do you even know what you're asking for? Tsunade screamed like an enraged beast. But, Tsunade-sama, you yourself couldn't find his location for a long time. If we don't strike now, there could be serious consequences later. Sasuke looked at the fifth with a very serious look. I said no, I have no idea how you know where he is right now. But do you even know who he is? Senju looked at the children with irritation. And you, Kakashi, how did you even think of agreeing with them? Tsunade angrily hit the table and it shattered into pieces. And if we have a good enough reason, will you let us go? Naruto thought that the only way out was to tell the fifth Hokage about everything. In any case, it wouldn't hurt for her to know about it. Reasons. And what are they? Tsunade looked at Uzumaki with distrust. Sasuke, I think it would be better for you to just show her everything, Naruto said to his friend. Sasuke nodded in understanding and, activating the Sharingan, looked at Tsunade. Hokage-sama, please don't look away, I'll show you my memories, Sasuke smiled a little ominously. For everyone, it was only a second, but Tsunade seemed to have lived through everything that Uchiha had shown her. She sat down on a chair, holding her head with her hand. The amount of information made her feel sick. Tsunade was not prepared for this at all. Why the hell didn't you tell me earlier? Tsunade drawled tiredly. Return to the past. The Shinobi War. Madara. Is it possible to believe such a thing? But nevertheless, for a simple illusion in the memories there were too many details that were simply impossible to find out. Okay, fine, you convinced me. But from this day on, all your actions will be carried out under my complete control. Any arbitrary decisions will be considered a violation, which will be followed by punishment. If everything you showed me is true, then we need to think through all our actions in advance. The fifth Hokage instantly pulled herself together. Kakashi, the mission will be under your supervision. You must be extremely careful, the fifth said, frowning at the man. I understand everything, Tsunade-sama, he said in response. Okay, you can go, Senju said, waving her hand towards the door. The door closed. Tsunade groaned heavily and stared at the ceiling. She suddenly thought that these guys really were incredible. To go through so many trials. It all seemed too incredible. But, if that was really the case, then fate had given them a great chance to prevent a disaster. I think we should have told her from the beginning. Sakura looked guiltily at the residence building. Well, in any case, now she knows, which means we can go, Uzumaki said. Yes, I think it's better to leave right now, Uchiha nodded in agreement. After some time, they were outside the gates of Konoha again. Do you know which base Orochimaru is currently in? Kakashi asked with interest. Yes, most likely, he is now in Kusagakure, his hideout is underground, Sasuke answered. The destination could be reached in 2 weeks. This time was long enough for them. Finally, after the time had passed, they were at their destination. It was a deserted mountainous area. And Sasuke knew well where the secret entrance was. After a while, they were already inside the labyrinth. Sasuke walked ahead, confidently navigating the corridors. Still a gloomy place, Naruto shrugged. Of course, this is not a luxury hotel, Uchiha grinned. When they made an unknown turn, they found themselves in front of a wooden door. I see we have uninvited guests. Unfortunately, We have not prepared a gift for the meeting. I hope you will not be offended by such an unfriendly reception. Kabuto's cold voice was heard behind him. Aren't you happy to see us? Naruto smirked. He was excited for the upcoming fight. Murder of two in the snake's den. Uninvited guests are never welcome, Kabuto answered sullenly. Stop talking nonsense. Where is Orochimaru? Kakashi had no desire to make small talk with him. How impatient you are, but before meeting Orochimaru-san, you should survive here, Kabuto grinned. It won't be hard to get rid of you. Sakura looked at him defiantly. Who said I would fight you? Kabuto smiled. You will fight them, he pointed behind himself. At that moment, Team 7 saw two strange monsters behind Kabuto. They had long shaggy hair, their bodies were dark brown, and there were strange appendages on their arms and legs. Who are these? Kakashi's mouth opened wide in surprise. These are the guards who punish violators like you, Kabuto smiled. Have fun, boys, he told them before turning around. Where are you going? Naruto broke away, but one of those strange guys hit Naruto in the stomach, and Uzumaki flew to the door. Damn, that hurts, Naruto said hoarsely. Apparently, these two were Orochimaru's test subjects, although I don't know what they are doing here. Orochimaru usually keeps all the prisoners in the northern hideout, the Uchiha said sullenly. The two monsters roared and attacked first. You three can go after Kabuto, I can handle this myself, Kakashi told them, not taking her eyes off the two huge monsters. Sasuke, Naruto and Sakura nodded and ran in the direction Kabuto had gone. The strange creature standing nearby saw that they wanted to leave and swung its huge hand in their direction. But Hatake stopped it, knocking it down with one swift movement. The three quickly ran after the escaped Kabuto. A terrible roar sounded behind them, and the walls began to collapse. Will Kakashi-sensei be able to handle them? Sakura asked worriedly. Yes, even though they are dangerous, Kakashi-sensei will be able to defeat them, Sasuke nodded. They quickly ran along the narrow corridor. After a while, the guys reached a fairly spacious room. So you're here after all, Orochimaru and Kabuto came out from the opposite side of the room. If your sensei were with you, getting rid of you would be quite problematic. But now that you are alone here, we can calmly kill you too, and I will finally get the Uchiha. Orochimaru licked his lips like a perverted maniac. So you wanted to separate us? Do you think it would be that easy to kill us? Sakura looked at the Sannin mockingly. Tsunade-sama once said that you were too self-confident, but this is very careless of you. You talk too much, Orochimaru shouted, opening his mouth and pulling out a long sword with his tongue. He shook his head, wanting to cut the standing Naruto in two. Because of you, my chakra channels were burned, and I still can't restore them. Today, you will pay for this with your life. Orochimaru shouted loudly. Sasuke and Naruto jumped back at the same time, creating a fireball and sending it at the Sannin, but Orochimaru skillfully dodged the attack. Kabuto, who was still standing, wanted to run towards Orochimaru, but Sakura blocked his way. Where are you going? You don't think I'll let you help him, do you? She said with a smirk. Kabuto took out a scalpel hidden in his sleeve and, preparing to attack, looked at the girl defiantly. A little girl who knows a few medical tricks and now she's putting on airs. He said irritably. I know not only a few medical tricks, but also many other interesting things, Haruno answered, deftly forming seals. The ground beneath Kabuto's feet trembled. He deftly jumped back when the floor beneath him suddenly collapsed. Earth technique, Kabuto said in a cold tone. Do you still want to see my tricks? Haruno asked. She created the seal again, and the boy was suddenly carried away by a powerful wave of water towards the wall. Sakura did not give him time to recover from the attack. She ran up to him, raised her leg up, intending to finish everything with one blow, but Kabuto managed to dodge in time. The fight also began behind them. Sasuke knew that before he could kill Orochimaru, he had to destroy his fake body. But he didn't think that this time it would be as easy as in his previous life. Orochimaru held the hilt of his sword with his long tongue and attacked Sasuke. The Uchiha dodged, but the sharp tip of the sword still managed to graze his hand. With each passing minute the scale of the battle grew. The walls of the room shook with each new technique that they launched at each other. The battle was hard and drawn out. No one wanted to give in to each other. Naruto created a huge rasengan and sent it at Orochimaru. Orochimaru quickly jumped up and the impact wave hit the wall, destroying it in a matter of seconds. Sasuke frowned. Orochimaru was too evasive. The Sannin opened his mouth, from which a large number of snakes came out. They quickly rushed towards the enemy. Sasuke burned all the annoying reptiles and rushed forward at Orochimaru. In each of his attacks, you could see his strong desire to destroy the Sannin. Kurama, I think I need to use your chakra, Naruto said seriously. Right now, you can only withstand a cover with 5 tails at most, Kurama warned. Naruto nodded in understanding, using the chakra that was seething inside his stomach. His body began to be covered in a film of chakra, his eyes turned orange, and fangs grew in his mouth. Naruto's movements became faster. The Jinchuriki deftly ran along the wall. He wanted to take advantage of the moment while Orochimaru was fighting the Uchiha. But the missing nin was still an unusual person. He dodged Naruto's powerful fire attack. But the Uzumaki was still persistent. He quickly approached Orochimaru and, using his chakra tail, grabbed his leg, throwing him against the destroyed wall. The Sannin, not expecting the blow, hit a pile of stones painfully. Sasuke, using the opportune moment, aimed his dragon flame technique at him. The missing nin did not have time to react, and the fire attack covered him. The false flesh began to burn under the pressure of great energy and a terrifying picture suddenly appeared before him. Kakashi dodged a powerful blow from one of Orochimaru's test subjects. These two, apparently, could activate the cursed seal. One of them grew wings on his arms, and his body was covered in black lines. Hatake dodged the powerful, deadly attacks. Kakashi raised his hand in front of him, creating a raikiri, and in one quick jump he appeared in front of one of the two opponents, attacking him in the heart. Kakashi's technique was deadly, and the opponent fell after the first blow. Kakashi got rid of the second one in the same way, but unfortunately, this was not the end. When the copy ninja walked down the corridor, he saw that they were waiting for him. Opposite him stood about 24 strange creatures similar to the previous two. How many test subjects does Orochimaru have? Kakashi thought gloomily. Somewhere in the distance the sounds of battle could be heard. I guess I'll be late. I hope they can cope without me, he thought disappointedly. Naruto looked ahead in surprise. He obviously didn't expect Orochimaru's true form to look like this. The only thing that could still let them recognize the Sannin was his head, but the rest of the nuke's body was snake-like. Orochimaru's form was ugly and frightening. The Sannin raised his slimy body and stuck out his tongue. A strong, murderous ki instantly covered them. It was easy to tell that he was not in the best mood right now. Sakura, who was fighting Kabuto, also managed to assess the Sannin's appearance and was horrified. Orochimaru-san. Kabuto shouted in fear and rushed towards the man. He knew very well that Orochimaru was vulnerable in his true form. But he didn't have time to help him. Sakura threw him to the floor with a strong blow to the stomach. Take care of yourself, bastard, she shouted, and not wanting to wait for him to come to his senses, she attacked him again. Yakushi flew back. His body trembled, and he spat a large amount of blood on the floor. I hope you'll accept my apology. If we don't get rid of you now, you'll give us a lot of headaches in the future, Haruno smirked, thrusting a kunai into the guy's already weakened body. Yakushi opened his mouth, but only a faint sigh could be heard from his mouth. His eyes trembled before closing. At that moment, he was finally finished. Yakushi Kabuto was dead, but Haruno had no time to rejoice. She turned around and frowned at the battle going on next to her. Fortunately, the snake Sannin's situation was not the best. It's over, Orochimaru, Sasuke shouted loudly. He quickly formed seals, creating a large wave of fire. Naruto, not giving in to the Uchiha, began to gather a huge amount of chakra in his hand. The rasengan mixed with Kurama's chakra turned bright red. Bite that, Datbeo, Naruto shouted loudly, sending an attack towards his opponent. This can't be. I'm immortal. Orochimaru's angry cry could be heard in the half-destroyed walls of the base. Not wanting to give up, he began to crawl away from the powerful attack. The snakes hissed loudly and scattered in different directions. But his fate was already inevitable. The entire shelter was shaken by a huge explosion. The base began to collapse. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura covered their eyes from the large amount of dust. When they turned around, they saw only the remains of a destroyed wall and ceiling. The Sannin was unable to hide from the attack. Orochimaru left behind only a few hissing snakes and part of his unburned head, from which a huge tongue stuck out. They stood there for a while, not saying a word. It was all too unbelievable for them. Sasuke looked with a heavy gaze at what could have previously made many of the strongest shinobi afraid. He had acquired the strongest skills and knowledge thanks to him. But he did not regret killing him at all. On the contrary, he suddenly felt an unprecedented relief. Naruto and Sakura did not want to think about anything at that moment. They were too exhausted and did not really want to worry about anything right now. I see you tried hard. Kakashi suddenly approached them, hoarsely distracting them. He was very battered, and his hand was bleeding profusely. Are you okay? Let me heal you,
Sakura looked at the exhausted sensei. I'm fine, you better take care of them, Hitaki said, pointing at the boys. I'm too tired, I want to go home, Naruto groaned tiredly and sat down on the ground. I can't believe we did it, Sasuke sat down next to Naruto and looked at the blue sky. It's time to return to Konoha. Tsunade-sama will be very interested to know how 3 Chunin were able to defeat the Sannin, Kakashi said thoughtfully, not taking his eyes off the trio. After all, he was curious himself. He expected that the boys would have problems because they had to split up. But apparently they didn't need his help to begin with. The copy ninja suddenly felt useless. This day was too hard for Team 7. Naruto was not so badly hurt by Orochimaru's attacks, as Kurama healed the wounds almost immediately, but Sasuke was less lucky. His clothes were almost torn, and in some places, sword wounds were visible. After a hard-fought battle, Team 7 finally went back to the village. The news of the Snake Sannin's death would soon shake all 5 great shinobi countries. Another dangerous mission. The news of the Snake Sannin's death, as expected, shocked the 5 great nations. After returning to Konoha, Team 7 headed to the Hokage's residence. Tsunade was incredibly surprised when she learned of the successful completion of the mission. This was certainly good news. But it also meant that Team 7's peaceful days were over. Akatsuki was about to begin moving, and soon all tailed beasts and Jinchuriki would be in great danger. To confirm this, they received a message just a month after their return. Kakuzu and Hidan were going to catch the two-tailed one. Damn, 5 irritably hit the recently purchased table. Tsunade-sama, calm down, Shizune groaned. Senju had been very irritated lately. The situation in the country was tense. Nara groaned as soon as he entered the office. He had already guessed from Senju's mood that the mission would be a complete hassle. He frowned at the expressions on the faces of Team 7 and became even more convinced of his assumptions. Okay, listen up. We have reliable word that Akatsuki is planning to act again. This time, they are targeting the two-tailed Jinchuriki, which is Niyugido. It looks like you need to head towards the Cloud Village. Kakashi, Sakura, Naruto, and Shikamaru are going on this mission. Be careful, Akatsuki is a big threat. Why are you sending me with them? Why isn't Sasuke going with them? Nara asked with displeasure. I have a special important task for Uchiha. Besides, there is a reason why I think you are very suitable for this mission. So keep all your grievances to yourself. If you have nothing else to ask, then get out now, Senju said, barely containing her anger. After everyone left, Sasuke looked at Fifth warily. You can come in, Senju said, not taking her eyes off the younger Uchiha. Sasuke didn't have time to really be surprised when at that moment someone entered through the open window. It's good to see you again, brother, Itachi said, removing his hood. Brother, Sasuke said in shock. I admit, I still don't trust you, Itachi Uchiha, and I haven't caught you for a few reasons. That's why you should understand that if I don't get evidence, your position as a criminal won't change, Senju said, frowning at the guy. Don't worry, Tsunade-sama, I promise that my brother and I will provide you with Danzo, dead or alive, the elder Uchiha said with a grin. Sasuke sighed. He realized what mission lay ahead of him. Be careful. Danzo is an extremely unpleasant person. He is even more dangerous than Orochimaru, she said, glaring at the two boys. Uchiha mentally rolled his eyes. He knew very well how dangerous this old stump was. Well then, I'll take my leave, Itachi said, grabbing Sasuke's hand and jumping out the window. Tsunade frowned. How bad must Konoha's security be that a missing nin could easily enter and leave the village? And even get to the residence without any obstacles. Senju's heart was uneasy and she couldn't help but think about retirement. At this time, Shikamaru and Team 7 had already left the gates of Konoha. Nara was clearly unhappy that he did not have enough detailed information about what was happening. But apparently, he was the only one who did not know anything. You know what's going on, right, Kakashi-san? Nara asked, looking at the Junin. Maybe I know, maybe I don't, it depends on what you mean, Hitaki said, without taking his eyes off the book. I'm talking about Akatsuki. Why did they need Biju? The genius didn't leave him alone. Well, all I can say is that if we don't stop them, the consequences won't be the most pleasant, the Junin replied. Really? Nara rolled his eyes, clearly expecting a different answer. I think we need to hurry, the road to the Cloud Village is not close, Haruno suddenly intervened. Nara nodded. All he had to do was complete this mission successfully. Knowing unnecessary information would be problematic. Missions to kill heavy enemies. Team 7 was heading towards the Cloud Village with Shikamaru.
The young genius of the Nara clan was extremely skeptical about this whole situation. He couldn't help but think that everything that was happening was part of something clearly problematic. Shikamaru frowned at Naruto walking next to him. In his opinion, this blonde clearly had a direct connection to the strange things that had been happening lately. Akatsuki, the murder of Orochimaru and Kabuto, all this was not as simple as it seemed at first glance. Can you tell us about them again? Nara asked a little later. Hidan, a religious fanatic of the god Jashin. His character borders on madness, and to kill him, even cutting off his head will not be enough. When they fight together, Kakuzu is usually not afraid to harm him, since it is unlikely to harm him. Kakuzu himself is not so easy to kill either. He has 5 hearts, thanks to which he can use different types of elements. And he will remain alive as long as he has at least 1 heart left, Kakashi answered, remembering Naruto's story. Shika nodded, noting something to himself. 5 days later, when they were about to reach the Cloud Village, Kurama suddenly alerted Naruto that he had sensed the chakra of 2 missing nin. They're here, Uzumaki said, looking somewhere ahead. Sakura and Hatake instantly focused. According to what you told me about them, it would be better if we attack them first. Also, we should separate them, fighting 2 at once in the same area would be difficult, Shikamaru analyzed. Okay, then you and Sakura will take care of Hidan, and Naruto and I will take care of Kakuzu, Kakashi nodded in agreement. They hid in the treetops, waiting for the missing nin to appear. After some time, 2 figures appeared in the Konoha shinobi's line of sight. Damn it, I can't wait for this fucking mission to end. A loud voice full of indignation was heard. Shut up already, Kakuzu replied irritably. Seeing them, Naruto took advantage of the moment and pounced on Kakuzu from behind. The kunai pierced the missing nin's chest, breaking one of his 5 hearts, but the Jinchuriki did not dare to relax. What the fuck is going on here? Bitch, you're the Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed. And we're fucking lucky, it looks like we'll be able to get 2 demons at once today, Hidan said upon seeing the attacker. Naruto wasn't distracted by his words at all. He created a rasengan with his free hand and struck the other heart. The new cannon flew back several meters, but remained standing. Little flies from the Leaf Village. Fighting you was clearly not in our plans, so let's finish this quickly, he shouted angrily, throwing off his cloak and revealing his body. The stitches on it suddenly began to come apart, and the remaining hearts crawled out from his back, taking shape. How annoying, Naruto was clearly prepared for this development. Hidan wasn't about to stand by and watch his partner fight. He grabbed the scythe from his back and swung it at Haruno with ease. Sakura blocked the scythe with a kunai and then kicked him in the chest, sending the missing nin tumbling across the ground. It hurts, damn it. Hidan was indignant. He was about to pounce on the annoying girl again, but suddenly he felt danger from behind. The man jumped up, standing on a tree, just at the moment when Shikamaru was about to catch him with a shadow. Ha, is that all you 2 can do? I expected more, the missing nin said disappointedly. We haven't shown anything yet, Haruno smiled, attacking her opponent. Hidan frowned. He really didn't like the situation at all. Avoiding the crazy girl's blows and not getting caught by the shadow was quite a challenge. The kunoichi deftly dodged the enemy's massive weapon, then, sharply closing the distance, hit him in the jaw. Hidan fell to the ground, confused for a split second, but that was enough for Shikamaru to use a shadow grab. Now, first, let's get rid of this thing. Controlling Hidan's body, he made him throw the scythe to the ground. Well, finally, now let's get out of here, Haruno said with relief. Shikamaru and Sakura rushed into the depths of the forest, taking Hidan with them. Kakuzu was also having a hard time. He realized that his opponents knew them quite well. Otherwise, how could he explain how the little fox figured out that he had more than 1 heart? Now the masks of water and earth were destroyed. Thinking about this, the missing nin did not hesitate any longer. Obeying his will, the black creature moved forward. Wind element. Bleeding power. He shouted. Naruto and Kakashi were blown away by the shockwave, which swept away trees and sand along with them. What a problematic guy, Naruto said, spitting out blood. To prove his point, Kakuzu used his second mask, sending a huge wave of fire towards them, but Kakashi stepped forward in time, using a water technique and canceling out Kakuzu's attack. Well, that's it, I'm sick of you, it's time to end this. With these words he pulled the masks back, acquiring an unusual shape. There were many strange threads sticking out of his body. Kakuzu used the threads to grab Naruto who was advancing on him, but unfortunately for him, it was a clone. Uzumaki was too lazy to think of anything else. It was much better to use the already proven method. That is why he, having tricked Kakuzu with an old move, attacked him from the sides and destroyed 2 more hearts. How is this possible? Kakuzu asked, confused. Consider it not the first time I've done this, Naruto said with a smirk, then created a rasengan and threw it at the enemy. The powerful attack finally immobilized the enemy. In the end, he only had 1 heart left in his chest. You underestimated us, Kakashi said, stepping closer. That was your mistake, and that's why you lost. Hitaki finished off Kakuzu by using Chidori and destroying the last heart. At this time, the battle against Hidan, which was taking place a little further away, was also almost coming to an end. Sakura had set up the necessary trap quite quickly, and all that was left for Shikamaru to do was to force Hidan into it. Thanks to Naruto and Kakashi's warning, he knew that he had to get rid of the enemy while the trapping technique was still working. This is fucking not good. The new Kennen felt that he would definitely not like what was about to happen. There were explosive scrolls everywhere, which did not inspire any confidence. He desperately tried to get out, but the shadow capture technique was still in effect. I promise I'll kill you no matter what. He shouted angrily. But his threats had no effect on Sakura and Shikamaru. Unlike their previous life, due to the fact that they were sufficiently aware of the enemies and separated them, they did not waste a large amount of chakra. That is why Shikamaru did not have much trouble holding Hidan. He used the shadows to pull the explosive scrolls to Hidan's body and immediately detonated them. The sound of an explosion resounded in the forest, after which only the man's head remained. You bitch, you think that's enough? I'll bite you to death, no matter what it takes. Hidan shouted. You're so noisy, the kunoichi said irritably, no longer wanting to listen to his unintelligible speech, filled with nothing but curses. She waved her hand, and the ground suddenly shook and parted, leaving a huge gap. Hidan, unable to do anything, fell deep down. May you be cursed by the name of the god Jashin, was the last thing they heard from him. A second later, the ground beneath them closed again. Finally, now he will die in time without our help, Sakura sighed with relief. Ha, that was problematic, Nara replied in the same tone. I guess they should have finished too. Let's go faster, I want to get back soon, the pink-haired girl said in a hurry. Wait, let me rest, Shikamaru told her, clearly not having the same amount of energy. The mission to eliminate the immortal team had ended much better than they had expected. Naruto was in high spirits, everything was going well after all. The only thing that still worried him was Sasuke. He had an idea of what kind of mission he had been sent on, which was why his worries were growing, but all he could do was hope that everything would go well. Itachi and Sasuke waited until late at night, when Danzo was returning home from route headquarters. A rustling sound was heard from the forest. Who is it? Shimura asked, but no one answered. Danzo suddenly had a bad feeling. He moved forward towards the trees. I feel like there's someone here. Come out, Shimura said irritably. No need to be so nervous, Danzo-sama, the voice answered him. Danzo turned around and saw Sasuke standing in the darkness. Uchiha, what do you want? Shimura asked, frowning. I was just wondering if your hand was worth so many Uchiha lives, Sasuke said, coming closer. Where are you from? No, it doesn't matter, it means you came for revenge. Shimura looked into the boy's eyes dispassionately. Exactly, Sasuke replied. Ha, I think you're too confident if you think you can handle me. Danzo opened his hand with the Sharingan implanted in it. Uchiha didn't wait for the root leader to attack, he suddenly raised his right hand and fired a Chidori spear at Danzo. Shimura jumped back, then formed seals with his hands and hit Uchiha with a vacuum wave technique. Sasuke was thrown forward, but he immediately got back up and rushed at Danzo again with a katana in his hands. Uchiha was used to using a katana in battle, but since returning to the past, he had no need to use it, so he simply acquired one, carrying it on his belt just in case. It was at this moment that he needed it more than ever. Sasuke actually knew very well that he couldn't defeat Danzo, but all he needed was to simply distract him. Danzo caught Sasuke by the throat as he lunged at him, and it was at this moment that Uchiha suddenly smiled widely. Gotcha. Shimura, who was distracted by Sasuke's attack, did not notice Itachi suddenly appeared next to him. Danzo, who was holding Sasuke by the throat, turned around and saw blood-red eyes. What? He only managed to say before he was plunged into Genjutsu. Itachi's ability to control time in Genjutsu was at its best, so they didn't have to worry about Danzo dispelling it so easily. Sasuke, finally having the opportunity, grabbed the katana and plunged it into Shimura's heart. The root leader's heart no longer beat. Ha, It's over, Sasuke sighed, rubbing his neck. Now we need to get out of here, Itachi said, looking at the dead body. The same second Shimuro Danzo was killed, the seal on the Root Anbu members' tongues disappeared. As soon as morning came, Shizune suddenly burst into the Hokage's office with incredible news. Danzo Shimuro had been killed, and his dead body had been found on Konoha territory. It had not yet been possible to determine who the killer was, but the fact that it had happened so silently had surprised many. Okay, Shizune, let Danzo's body be sent to the lab first, Senju said, rubbing her temples and listening to the indistinct muttering of her assistant. A laboratory? But why? Shizune asked in surprise. Don't ask why, just do it. Also, have Ibiki questioned someone from Root Anbu about all the known details regarding Shimuro Danzo? Okay, Tsunade-sama, Shizune nodded and left the office. 3 days later, incredible events occurred in Konoha. The head of the Root Anbu was killed. The identity of the killer could not be established. Because of this, an investigation was conducted, during which an incredible fact was revealed. Danzo Shimuro is the real killer of the Uchiha clan. As evidence of this, the Sharingans of the deceased Uchihas were found implanted in his right hand and eye socket on his body. During the interrogation of the members of the Root Anbu, it was also revealed that Danzo Shimuro had once also planned an assassination attempt on the third Hokage-sama. Also the next day after this, Hiruzen suddenly reported that Itachi Uchiha did not run away from the village at all, but carried out his direct orders, being a spy in the Akatsuki organization. Thanks to Itachi Uchiha's constant reports, Konoha was able to gather enough information about this organization. This news plunged the shinobi who had just recovered from the news of Orochimaru's death into chaos. Meanwhile, while everyone was heatedly discussing the events that had happened, Itachi and Sasuke were once again standing in the Hokage's office. I wonder what you told the elders and the third? Sasuke asked, looking intently at the fifth. I had to tell the third the whole truth for him to make such a statement, and as for the elders. Hasn't Itachi told you yet? I just gave him the task of working on their memories so that they actually think it was Danzo, Tsunade replied. Then everything became clear, Sasuke nodded. What's more important, you won't be able to stay in Akatsuki now, you'll be living with Sasuke. No matter what, for the sake of public peace, I'll have to assign Anbu to you for surveillance. And also limit your freedom. You won't be able to get out of Konoha anytime soon. If I just leave you after what happened, it will arouse suspicion. So be patient for a month. Once everything settles down, you'll be a completely free person, she shaved to the elder Uchiha. Okay, I understand, Itachi nodded. That's great, now go, the Irionin said, waving her hand. A romantic night before the coming storm. Your mother. The man shouted loudly. He slammed his fist against the cave wall. Because of Naruto, all my plans were ruined. And Itachi too. What came over him to suddenly return to Konoha? Obito was in uncontrollable anger. Lately, his plans were collapsing one after another. He didn't know that fighting these children would be so difficult. Zetsu. He shouted into the void. Yes, what are your orders? A strange creature instantly appeared in front of the man. Tell Pain to get started. We don't have time to wait any longer. If we don't get rid of Naruto and get the 9 tails, he will definitely become a big threat to us, the Uchiha replied irritably. Okay. Zetsu disappeared without further ado at that very second. I will definitely achieve my goals. And no one will be able to stop me. Obito thought with complete confidence. Oh, it's been so long since we've relaxed like this. Naruto said with pleasure. After they returned from the mission, the guys decided to sit at Uchiha's house and relax a little. Yes, after all, we've been too busy lately, Haruno agreed. She extended her hand, intertwining her fingers with Sasuke's. Ha, I feel very awkward. The day I decided to completely cut all ties, I was ready to die by your hand. But now I sit in front of you, still alive, Itachi said mockingly, drinking a glass of sake. It was obvious that he had overindulged a bit. And anyway, he was the only one who was drunk. The others weren't allowed to drink, considering they were still underage. Ni-san, you're already drunk, Sasuke sighed tiredly. They had been living together for a few days now, and it was clear that Itachi was feeling very awkward. Maybe he was still carrying the weight of guilt. And even if Sasuke was trying to act normal, they still needed time. I know that nothing has changed. No matter what reasons I pursued. No matter how noble my deed. It will not change the fact that my hands are stained with the blood of my loved ones. The elder Uchiha said in a hoarse voice. He had worn this mask for so many years. He had kept these feelings inside for so many years. And now, When Itachi was sitting in front of the only person left alive, his feelings could not help but burst out. I think it would be best to put him to sleep, Naruto suggested. He looked at the Uchiha with a slightly sad look. Itachi was one of the people he admired. He knew how strong Itachi was mentally, but that didn't change the fact that he felt emotional pain too. I'll take him upstairs, Sasuke nodded, getting up from the table and leading his brother into the room. Okay. I need to go for a walk, I'll leave you alone, Naruto smiled. Thank you, Sakura answered shyly. Going outside, Naruto stood there for a while, as if deciding something, and then went in the opposite direction from the house. Today he would finally do what he wanted to do for a long time. 10 minutes later he was already in the area where the Hyuga clan lived. He knew the area very well, and a minute later he was standing in front of Hinata's window. You'll be in trouble if Hiashi notices you, Kurama warned. I know, but for love I'm ready to risk it, Naruto said confidently. He impatiently knocked on the window. The window opened, and Uzumaki saw a sleepy girl in crumpled pajamas. Hinata looked at the unexpected guest in surprise. It was clear that she hadn't yet fully understood the situation. She blinked stupidly, rubbed her eyes and looked ahead again. Naruto-kun, Hinata exclaimed in a ringing voice. Blushing deeply, she stepped back from the window in fear. Even in her worst nightmare, the girl could not imagine that Naruto would see her like this. The guy himself was not at all embarrassed. He deftly climbed into the girl's room, as if it were his own home. What are you doing here? The girl muttered, still red as a lobster. I just wanted to see you, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head awkwardly. See, but we could have seen each other in the morning. Why did you have to come to my house so late? The girl was very worried that her father might come into the room. I wanted to see you right now, Naruto answered as if it were a matter of course. Hinata couldn't think of anything to say. Her face was literally burning with embarrassment, and there wasn't a single normal thought left in her head. Stop enjoying her helplessness. Say what you wanted and leave. I sense Hiyashi's chakra nearby. Naruto didn't waste time any longer. He walked up close to the girl, peering intently into her eyes. What happened? Hinata saw that Naruto's face was only a few centimeters away from hers and became very nervous. What's going on? She screamed desperately in her heart. Hinata, I like you. These words instantly stunned the girl. She looked at the guy with distrust. What did you say, Naruto-kun? She didn't notice how her voice trembled. I'm saying, I like you. So please be my girlfriend. Uzumaki didn't expect that he would actually be so worried. His hands involuntarily began to sweat, and his mouth became dry. Naruto-kun. Hinata finally realized that what the guy said was not an illusion. Do you agree? The Jinchuriki asked uncertainly. Me, I agree. Hinata's voice was very quiet. She lowered her head and stared at her feet. Kami-sama, how embarrassed she felt right now. Naruto, hearing the girl's answer, showed his white teeth in a smile. He hugged the girl tightly, kissing her loudly on the cheek. Naruto-kun, the girl exclaimed again, pressing her burning cheek with her hand. Hey, then I'll come see you again tomorrow, Hinata-chan. The Chunin narrowed his eyes in satisfaction, then quickly jumped out the window. Kurama said that Hiashi was near Hinata's room. The same second Naruto ran out of the room, there was a knock on Hinata's door. Hinata, is something wrong? I heard a voice. The man's voice was heard from behind the door. Father. Hinata woke up and quickly opened the door. What happened? Hiashi looked suspiciously at his flushed daughter. Oh, I got hot, so I opened the window, the girl answered, trying to suppress her excitement. Is that how it is? He asked, as if trying to make sure that his daughter's words were true. Hinata nervously clutched her blouse with her hand and nodded uncertainly. Okay. Good night, he said, leaving the room. When the door closed, the girl's legs gave way and she sat down on the cold floor. Then, as if remembering, she went to the window, but there was no one there. Maybe it was all my imagination, she muttered uncertainly, but her cheek was still burning, clearly proving that it was all true. Is he asleep? Sakura asked, seeing Sasuke coming down the stairs. Yes, it was very hard for him all this time. And even if I don't blame him for anything anymore, he hasn't forgiven himself yet. The guy sat down on the chair next to the girl, closing his eyes and lowering his head on the girl's shoulder. Give him time, he will definitely be able to come to his senses. Haruno ran her hand through her beloved's hair. Ever since we came back, I've been thinking about what if I lose him again. These thoughts have haunted me every day, but now I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Sakura nodded understandingly. She knew Sasuke's feelings better than anyone else. The Uchiha raised his eyes and looked at the tender expression on the girl's face. In moments like these, Sakura always supported him. No matter what, she was ready to wait as long as it took. Even when he was ready to kill her, she was ready to die by his hand. He smiled faintly and gently touched his lips to hers. Sasuke did not know how to be gentle or say beautiful words. It was simply not in his nature, but sometimes actions were much more effective than words. The night in Konoha was as quiet as ever. The air was filled with the scent of love. Part 25. I want to apologize to those who thought that this was a new chapter. I have an incredible creative stagnation, and kicks alone will not get rid of it. Therefore, I am very grateful to those who still have not forgotten me. I will be glad if someone helps me with my creative crisis.